Hey, good afternoon, Ron. Listen, Sleepy Joe came out swinging. He said, I got a spot on earlier this show from Eric. So I'm already one up on you, brother. So you're gonna have to, you're starting behind the eight
You
ball.
got a spot. Yeah, it doesn't count. You got a spot on for his comments or comments on his show.
Sleepy Joe making a count, man.
Sleepy Joe, you're killing me, bro. You're killing me. All right, good evening, everybody. Just want to wish everybody happy belated St. Patrick's Day. Remember, everybody is Irish on St. Patrick's Day, so it doesn't matter what nationality, what ethnicity you are. Everybody's Irish on St. Paddy's Day. So may the luck of the Irish be with you all. And just wanted to wish everybody a belated happy St. Paddy's Day.
Do they still go down in the pier? Remember they used to go to the pier, and then there used to be like a lot of beer used to flow on the pier, though. I remember that, right? Everybody could go on the pier. Well, you had to get a ticket, right? I think you had to join the Emerald Society or get a ticket, and then you get on the pier.
Yes. And that is true. That is true. Before we get started, just a little housekeeping from last week. Last week we were going long, and we ended the show without acknowledging the super chats. So there was one super chat that came out before the show went live, and neither one of us recall who it was from. We think we do, but we don't want to give credit to the wrong person. But so thank you to that person who did actually donate a little something before the show aired. And during the show, we had Modern Samurai with 2. And, he said, by the way, the CO couldn't take another assault number this month, so they downgraded to a misdemeanor assault and disorderly conduct for Comstat purposes. Sad days, safest big city in the city, shithole in 2 decades. So don't remember exactly what portion that was about. And then later in the show, he said, let's be honest, you guys were actual police officers. A lot of these bosses are just test takers. No time on the street, no arrests, all patrol guide knowledge, no patrol guide knowledge, led by a civilian with no experience. So Modern Samurai, thank you, ×2. I don't see you in the chat yet. But I did this morning, or no, last night on the 10-4 Tavern, did acknowledge you and let you know that we were going to be acknowledging it today. So we appreciate that. And then Dan Karzenia, who currently works for Councilmember Phil Wong, former on the staff of Bob Holden, donated $4.99. 5 spackaroos for the inspector and the chief. Have a good show. Things are getting crazy. Thanks for being the voice of reason. And then he said, see you tomorrow, Inspector. And what he was talking about there was I was invited back. I was invited back by the 110 Precinct and the 110 Precinct Community Council for their monthly council meeting because they asked me to speak, say a few words. The community affairs detective Dave Saponari was retiring, so they actually had to move it to the Hall of Silence. They normally have it at Flanders Field VFW post. Actually, I'm repping a VFW shirt today. God bless all our veterans. It's the only green shirt I have for St. Paddy's week, but they moved it to the Hall of Science so they can fit everybody in because Dave was 20 years at the 110 Precinct. He's been in community affairs since I put him there in 2013. So very popular, very loved, be loved by the community, gave a lot to the community. And then that was his former partner, Detective Janine Rivera, who is now working with the Queens DA. And so it was great to see the dynamic duo together again. And, a lot of people came out. You had 3 former COs, 4 with myself. Right there, you have the current CO, is DI Tony Wong. Then you sit myself, Inspector John Tremelli, who's now the CO of the Office of Professional Development. You have the former New York City Council member Francisco Moya, who's always been a very big supporter of the 110 precinct. He was a New York State Assemblyman prior to it. He lives in the 110 precinct. In the center there is Detective Dave Saponari. And then you have Inspector John Porter-Latin, who's currently the CO of the 3-4 precinct. DI Nick Ventry, who's in the Counterterrorism Bureau, was there, but left before we went up and we spoke. And you have the Community Council President, Al Perna, the Vice President, Will McCarthy, who's was in the chat last week or the week before from the 110 Community Council on Facebook. And he's not pictured. And then you have the current council member, Phil Wam, from the 30th District there. So just, really, really good guy. And that's Tim and his wife, Samantha, was there with his kids, Josh and Lily. So it was great for the family to see how much support Dave had, especially in a time where you don't see a lot of support of the police from the community. The 110 precinct always had good support. And then there are some portions of the 110 where there's not so much. And Dave and Janine and the other community affairs offices that took over after Janine left did a very good job. So shout out to Dave and his family. Congratulations on 20 years serving the community and being out there and really, addressing the concerns of the community and always following up, coming to the COs and working with the COs with great ideas and really being involved. So it was really good. And I remember when he had the kids, and it's funny because, a lot of people were coming up to me, and talking about the show and saying that they love our podcast, which is nice to hear. It's nice to hear. A lot of people were there that, obviously aren't in the chat because they're active members of the services of all ranks, members of the community that have said that they watch the show, that they love how we present the show, which is always good to hear. And then he tells me, he says his son just started up a YouTube channel. So his son's 10 years old, his son Josh. So he's got Josh's Kitchen and Baked Goods. He's got, he's on YouTube. He's got, he just started it up. I tell you, the kids are natural. I watched some videos. The kids are natural. Maybe at the end, I'll throw up the link, and people, after the show, go over, give the kid a follow, give him some support. He's a natural. He's a smooth talker, natural, behind the camera. So just a shout out to Josh, Dave, and his family. So just thanks for that little personal walk down memory lane with DA Katz was there. A lot of people came out. A lot of people from the community. A lot of people. It's funny. A lot of the politicians came out that, and Al, the community council president, made a comment, and it was true. He goes, "I've seen a lot of faces. I don't see it on normal meetings that came out tonight, for Dave. But maybe we should get some involvement more with the community council meetings. They're important. I think if you live in the city, even if you're an active member, there's nothing wrong with going to the local community council meeting, finding out what's going on, and if you're not a member of the service, definitely get involved. So good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, those city council meetings, I've hosted a few when I was the XO at a 2-3. They do get a fairly amount of people turn out, but I guess unfortunately for the neighborhood, it's the same people that turn out all the time. You'd like to see more involvement in there, but it's good that that officer was able to bring the community together for that many years and that many COs. So kudos to him, and congratulations on his retirement. And maybe his son will invite him on his podcast.
It's funny. He's the cameraman. He says, I got to get better with the cameraman or I'm going to get fired. I told him, I texted him after I watched a few of the episodes. And I said, the kid's a natural. I said, he's going to be a ladies' man when he gets older. He's just so smooth behind the camera.
There you go.
He loves to cook. You could tell he's passionate about it. So it was really nice. It was nice to see. It was nice to see. So our friend is back with a new handle. One battle after another one. I don't know what he's talking about yet. So
well, he's claiming, I think what it is he's claiming that the unknown donation was him. He's taking credit. He's taking credit for it.
I know for a fact wasn't him.
He said you're welcome.
Oh, is that what he's saying? Oh, yeah. All right. And Lily's asking who's the CO right now. It's let me get his first name. I'm sorry. It's Tony Wong. Deputy Inspector Tony Wong is now the CO of the 110 precinct. So it was nice. And the uniforms they have on are the Class A dress uniforms. Sleepy Joe. All right, Sleepy Joe answered it for me. So yeah, it was nice. And you know what? To be honest with you, I thought about this, right? I'm retired just over 2 years, right? February was 2 years that I retired. And this is the first police function that I've gone to since I retired. I haven't been to any fraternal meetings. I haven't been to any dinners.
What about PMI? You don't go to the PMI ones?
I haven't gone, and I used to go, and I haven't gone. I just actually paid my dues yesterday. It's funny, my PMI alumni dues.
Right.
I just paid it yesterday because I got they sent out the email for a couple of different events.
The last email, yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't gone to the PMI alumni events. I haven't gone in a couple of years prior to retirement, but I haven't gone since I retired. The only, I guess, police function that I've gone to was the funeral for Joe Herbert, because he was he lived by me, and I wanted to pay my respects. And so I went to the funeral, and I saw a lot of people there at the funeral. I discussed that and showed the picture after the funeral, because he died, not long after. He was a guest on the 10-4 Tavern with Tommy and Pete. But really, I haven't gone to a police function. So I told Dave, I said, you're the first one to get me to come out of the shadows, so to speak. I mean, I still feel connected because of the podcast and talking with you and with the chat and everything else. And, certain people I text and I speak on the phone with, but really haven't been involved with any events since I retired. How about you? Do you do any? I know they have a big retiree get together, like a big group of NYPD down in Florida.
Yeah.
Are you involved with that?
No, they have like the 1013 groups down in Florida, like different areas. I know John Latanzio had asked me to go to one most recently. Was a bunch of emergency service guys all get together, but I was unable to go to that. But no, I really haven't been involved at all with anything with the NYPD other than on the podcast. You think about we like Jack Cambria on 10-4 Tavern, right? Great interview by Tom and Pete, and that brings back the memories. We had John Latanzio on, right? So that he worked with me and you both of us while we were on the I think with you in EMS, and then while ESU with me. So yeah, I mean this is basically been my only extent of involvement, really, other than the people that I knew growing up. And we all became police officers, and you speak, like you said, text and stuff like that. So yeah, no, nothing specifically done for the police department. I have met guys. I met a couple guys from SOD, a couple guys from Harbor, and we went out to dinner and stuff. But other than that, I haven't really done anything off the side.
Yeah. So I haven't. Yeah. Sorry, a little craziness going on downstairs. Um, but
1013
yeah,
going down there.
yeah. I'm waiting for the wife to call in 85. But the yeah, I mean, I speak, like I said, I speak to a lot of people on the phone and text with a lot of people. I don't do Facebook, so I'm not in any kind of Facebook groups or anything like that. Um, and then I on LinkedIn, you know, I message back and forth with some people on LinkedIn,
Right.
but that's about it. That's about
Yeah.
it. It's weird. It's weird. We joke around, right? Uh, you know, when you're on the job, you're the best. When you're off the job, you're a pest. And that's basically when you need a favor or whatever. I've been fortunate, been able to. I remember we've had a conversation that you know that it depends. It depends on, you have to know, and it's tough sometimes to even keep track of where people are when you need a favor, right? Like, who do I know there nowadays? It's been so long, right? And so I was fortunate enough to be able to help somebody out in the academy in this last class, but it's getting harder and harder. It's getting harder and harder, you know. But
Yeah.
all right, um, let's keep on the um, the theme of looking back a little bit. So, you know, our last episode we talked about the ISIS inspired attack in New York City, and one of the things that we talked about, and John and Eric and Marlon, everybody else has talked about. A lot of people all throughout the internet were all kind of a little up in arms that only the chief and the sergeant were getting any credit for everything, and that some more video was coming out. We talked about it, and we showed the video of the community affairs officers that apprehended the second perpetrator, that handed him the second device, um, and gave them the credit and the kudos for remembering that they were cops first and actually getting physical and taking that guy into custody. And you know, the officers that took the other, the main perpetrator into custody, and nobody else seemed to be getting any credit. And you know, we didn't think that that was fair. So there was a
Hmm.
lot of push. A lot of other videos were coming out. They identified the officer through social media. I guess people knew people after people start talking. You know, it's a very close knit community once people start talking. And the officer that made the tackle apprehension of the main perpetrator that the chief was, you know, chasing. Yeah, Detective Nolan's putting it out. Is Police Officer Grant Polgarin. He's from the Manhattan North. Um, what do they call them nowadays? The old anti-crime guys,
It was a
the
public
public
safety,
safety,
right?
right? The
Yeah.
public safety team, and he was working the detail, and just uh, so on Tuesday, uh, and I'm going to say this had a lot to do with pressure from social media, the media. I'll even say, you know, the Finest Unfiltered network pushing the issue, because a lot of people watch the Finest Unfiltered network. A lot of people watch John and Eric and Marlon and us and Tommy and Pete, that are in the department, and very high ranking also. Um, and Tuesday, the commissioner brought down the whole group that was identified as taking the action to bringing these two perpetrators into custody, and so that was the right thing to do. It shouldn't have took over a week. They shouldn't have just been glorifying the chief and the sergeant. You know, we went into depth breaking down the videos and everything else last week, but you know, there were a lot of people that stood up and stood out in that incident. And another video just recently surfaced, either today or yesterday, and I'm going to play it for you, and it's a different angle. It's looking north, I would think this is, up the avenue where the perpetrator is being traced. The perpetrator is being chased. Yeah. And then you'll see, this is an example of when people are running from danger, the members of the NYPD are running towards that danger. And you'll see it just clear as day right here. And just before we start our show today, we want to acknowledge Officer Polgarin, all the other officers that are listed that are in this photo with the police commissioner, as well as those that are not, that had anything to do with it, and that were there, just that were there, that helped to clear out the area and do their job under dangerous circumstances. So let's take a look at the video.
What is this? What is that? What is that? What is that? What is that? Bomb! 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 Back up, back up. All right, back up. Back it up, back it up, back it up, back it up, back it up. Everybody back it up. Back it up, back it up, back it up, back it up. Let's go, back it up.
So I'm just going to back it up to that tackle. This guy does such an amazing job taking this guy down. You see, there's the chief pointing, get that guy. Community affairs, he's getting ready for it. Everybody else is running. There's Polgarin. He comes out. The guy tries to duke him, and he sticks his leg over. Look at that move. His arm and his leg to block his path. Wraps him up with his leg fully extended and takes him down to the ground. And that officer took a hard fall. And then you see the chief right on top of him, community affairs getting right in there, the rest of the officers, while everybody else is running. And now everybody wants pictures, but, you saw in the very beginning, everybody's scattering because he threw the bomb, and people are screaming bomb, bomb, bomb. So they knew. This video shows more of the fact that people knew a device was also thrown, but ran towards the danger while everybody else was running away to make that apprehension. And then the chief's on there, on all these other cops. And I think that first community affairs guy in a different video, I see him getting up injured. But then you see him getting taken into custody. And, the rest, we discussed pretty much in depth last week.
Yeah, when you talk about, the real hero, I mean, that's that officer right there. Did he know that the person threw an IED? I don't know. I mean, like we spoke about it last week. We said, two-star chief and the sergeant's chasing after somebody. You're going to do what you have to do to tackle the person. But you got to give the guy a lot of credit. And so no matter what, he put his life in danger, just like I guess everybody else there. And, I mean, textbook, would you say that's how you take a guy down that has an IED? Probably not, because, you don't know if he's wearing a suicide vest or anything else. But, he stepped up and he did a great tackle. He should be playing for one of the Giants or the Jets. But it just amazes me that the people are so concerned about getting photos, right? You see those photographers bending over and just trying to get a photo because what do they think? The cop was probably wrong or something else. He shouldn't have pushed the guy to the ground so hardly or whatever. And in reality, could he have been saving everybody's life there? Absolutely, And then I had also heard information that there was also, two cops that were hospitalized as a result of this. And the PC
being one of them, I believe.
Was there more? Yeah, but there was no.
No,
but there was no.
I believe Polgarin was one of them.
Oh, was one of them. Yeah. But there was no outreach by executives or anything else, which is which is sinful. You know, all they wanted to do, and I agree with what JDP 07 or 0704 says. What that tweet by Tisch looks like to me is just damage control, right? Hey, let's get everybody together. But if it was you in the precinct, or as me as the as the XO of SOD or whatever, you want to get all the information together before you present, what each person did. I mean, yeah, did Chief Edwards jump over a barrier and run after the guy? Absolutely. Did Sergeant Lewis Navarro, either jump over the device and went after the perpetrator also? But now you have Officer Grant, stopping the guy. So I mean, there is some heroism there, and it should have been played. I should have taken this long. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that should have been done right away, because they already did the news circuit, right? They went on all the news channels and everything else. And Officer Pagarin, he didn't get that, right? I mean, now he's getting it, but I don't see him on any of the news networks. But kudos to him. I know Eric has constantly said he should be getting not grade, but a detective shield right away. Next promotion, he should be there. So absolutely, totally agree with you.
Yeah, because we said it last week. The sergeant's definitely going to be getting special assignment pay at the next, and it's a miracle. It's surprising, and other people have mentioned this too in social media. In the police circles and everything else that understand that people are surprised that she didn't give him like the quote unquote field promotion.
Yeah.
Like we're not waiting for a promotion ceremony and either promoting him at the graduation ceremony or at the news conference or something like that. As far as the chief, listen, he's a 2-star borough commander. He's only got 2 more ranks that he could possibly make in the uniform ranks, and that's a super chief where there's very limited numbers, even though they're creating other positions that are 3-star chiefs that never were in the past, and then the chief of department. So what promotion can you really give him? You really can't give him anything more than acknowledgement, and that's basically it. Because for 99% of the 2-star chiefs, that's the pinnacle. Very few make it to that 3-star and 4-star position.
But they have given 3 stars to some borough commanders, right? Jerry Nelson was one. I think
was Jerry?
Chief Jerry Nelson made the 3rd star, as the borough commander. There was somebody else too. There was Hale, right?
From Manhattan South.
So should he? I mean,
Nelson also.
Yeah, I think you need to get a guy, that, like you said, that would have been, that raises morale, right? That's a guy that stepped up and did something, and it's easy. I don't care. Give every cop that was there at that ceremony, give them a bump up or whatever. They did a great job, not knowing, and they really put themselves in harm's way. So,
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And there's people that'll say, that, did they know? Did they not know? You also got to remember, unfortunately, in that situation, you're going to be very tunnel visioned. If you see the chief chasing somebody, people don't realize how tunnel vision you can get, and how that, even your hearing, you get so focused that you don't hear everything that's going on around you. So you may not even heard those people saying bomb or whatever the case. You just know there's a 2-star chief saying, get him. So, but yeah, great job. JDP 0704, if the mayor and other politicians can appoint controversial figures to their staff, there should be no issue promoting Pulgarin. This is a test for Tisch to see if she has what it takes to do it right. I think she will. I definitely think that she will. I definitely think we will see both of them. And again, the only reason that you're going to see Pulgarin is because of the, the outpouring of support that he's gotten on social media.
And I'm going to say it also started. I think it started with the Finest Unfiltered, because John put a post out. Eric said it numerous times on the podcast. So, like you said, people listen to our podcast, and I think they needed to make sure that they reached out and found who that guy was. And I'm glad that Grant is getting the notoriety that he deserved. And I think, like you said, absolutely social media. But if you remember, social media was well inundated by Chief Edwards and jumping over the fence. That's all you saw, and that's all what was pushed ahead. And then social media took over. But I definitely got to give kudos out to John, who spoke about it, and also to Eric, who constantly said on the podcast that that Grant should be promoted as well. And I agree wholeheartedly. Without a doubt.
There's no nobody can say anything. The only thing that may hold him up is, people say, oh, maybe she didn't want to push him forward because he's got high CCRBs, but he's a very active police officer, and you're going to get CCRBs in today's day and age. If you're doing proactive police work and you're out there and you're taking guns off the street, taking bad guys off the street, you're going to get CCRBs because they are solicited. It's not even, they're solicited, they're promoted, they're encouraged. It's amazing how everybody knows that you can mess with a cop's career by making a complaint, whether it's frivolous or not. Like they even said on their show, hey, listen, CCRB probably won't in this instance because it's an ISIS-inspired attack. If they saw that video on social media, they can make a self-generated case against the officer for excessive force for tackling him on the ground, like he did, saying that it was excessive force. He didn't need to do that. He didn't need to wrap him up and spin him and throw him down to the ground. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So if he's got, depending on the cases that he has open and any kind of investigations that he may have, but we've seen people with open investigations get promoted, in the past and recently, at higher ranks. I know somebody that got promoted with open charges and got promoted to 2-star chief.
Yeah. I don't know. Listen, he you know what? Whether he has the open CCRBs or not, so here you have to, and here's a look at it from a management perspective, right? You say, hey, here's a guy that could be afraid to do anything because he has so many CCRBs, reluctant to take police action, but that didn't matter to him. He was still a cop through and through. So, like you just said, he stepped up. So nothing pushed him down. So that in itself should be a reason why he gets promoted, because he took all the stuff, and he probably has the same philosophy that you just spoke about. As an active cop, I know I'm going to get these CCRBs. I know that people are, told to do CCRBs, and they make it so easy to be done. And he said, no, I'm still going to take police action. And he took police action where he really put himself in harm's way. So I think he did a great job. And whatever the case he had, I don't care what he has in his background right now, the man deserves the promotion.
Yeah. And Reed is saying, sadly, we're at a time where you're judged by your CCRBs, but how many were founded or just done out of spite? I'm going to even push back on that, because the CCRB, and we're going to talk about CCRB and body-worn camera in a little while, but it's been widely spoken about on this network how CCRB has been weaponized against the members of the NYPD. You don't get a fair and impartial investigation by the Civilian Complaint Review Board. They have reverse engineered their investigations, how they can find you substantiated or guilty, as opposed to looking at it. They've said in open testimony in city council hearings that they do not take, and Bob Holden directly asked them this question, they do not take the totality of the circumstances and the fact that officers are getting firebombs thrown at them, rocks thrown at them, bottles thrown at them into consideration when they look at these situations and these complaints. And their answer was no. We look at it from the perspective of the civilian. We are the Civilian Complaint Review Board. And they actually complained that a lot of times they substantiate cases against officers and can't bring formal charges against them because they didn't violate any laws or department policy. But the optics were such that they're going to find them guilty anyway by an outside entity. And that's what we complain about, and that's what we say all the time, because now you have not had due process, or even if you get found substantiated and charges, and then you beat them in the trial room and you're found not guilty, right? So your department charges or stay on your record as not guilty, right? But yet that doesn't change the CCRB because it's an outside agency. You still carry on your 50A for life. Run my 50A. It's still up there. My 1994 CCRB that I got is still in there, right? For life, that you were substantiated, which means that they found that you did it. But yet when you had your due process in law in front of an administrative law judge, and you were prosecuted for the allegation and found not guilty, it does not reverse the CCRB finding, which to me is one of the most nauseating things about the whole process.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you. If you could just bring Artie V's up, a great friend to the podcast, a good man, I know him. So he goes, here's my, it was at 1737. He goes, here's my question. What does that say about Chief Edwards? Did he mention the other people involved, or did he just take all the accolades for himself? And I agree. I hope that Chief Edwards did mention it to the PC or anybody else or in his interviews, because here's the thing. As a supervisor, and we've spoken about this in the past, your job now is to motivate and empower, right? That's what I say. I say motivate and empower. So anybody that works for you, you want to lift them up. And you and I had spoken about this a few times. When you get to a particular position, right, you're able to push other people up and we've always spoken that and that's what you do as a supervisor. You help the good people that did things right and are hard workers, and you motivate them and you try to get them promoted. You try to get them in different details or whatever they want. That's part of the job, and that's part of our supervisory responsibilities. And we spoke about also when there's a good guy in your command, you don't want to lose him. I remember you said there was like 5 guys or something you were losing in one particular detail, but you still have to do that. You can't say, oh, I'm going to keep you and it's not about me. It's about them. So I don't know if he did, and I don't know if you have any insight to that, but what I'm saying is he should have, and maybe he did and she ignored it, or maybe it wasn't even spoken about. But 100%, that's a very good question, and I hope that he did. I mean, he's attained a 2-star position, which is very, very high ranking in the police department, and I hope that he's happy that he's there. And I mean, very successful at to get 2 stars, especially that much time on the job. So he did good for himself, and I hope that he's pushing other people forward. That's all. But good question.
Technical Nolan says Chief Edwards started to, but he fell short. And I'm going to agree with that, because he did. In his initial statements, he said everybody out there were heroes. And that is falling short. You're right. He didn't specifically identify anybody. And as the borough commander, as the commander of that detail, as somebody right there, as somebody who pointed out a perp he was chasing, saw the officer tackle him, he should have been aware that Officer Polgarin was hurt during that apprehension, that community affairs officer was hurt during that apprehension. And he should have followed up with them. But he got swooped up into the social media swirl and into the NYPD push out of the narrative of such a success, when we all agreed that it wasn't a success, it was luck. The apprehensions were successful. Good police work led to the apprehensions, because of observation skills and tenacity of people like Pio Polgarin and those community affairs officers that apprehended the second person. That was great police work. However, the fact that we didn't have fatalities and this wasn't a complete tragedy was luck. And I think we showed that very clearly last week.
Oh yeah.
So, but then as the week progressed and there was more and more push and more social media influence, his statements got broader to bring in more people into the conversation about what happened. And then the police commissioner brought everybody down and put everybody in front of the camera. So
right. Yeah, I mean, so what, was there pressure? In fact, I mean, I've been on barricades where, they'll say, what happened, and what you want to do is I like to bring the officer that, brought them up. I've been on barricades with Jack Cambria where I said, well, H&T was the one that, talked them out, and, bring Jack up and let him talk to the media and stuff about what he said and what he did. So, I mean, yeah, I don't get me wrong. There's a lot of times the officers in ESU will be like, I'm not going up on the podium and I don't want to say anything, you go ahead or whatever. And that's fine. Then you do that. But you still got to say that, the officers at the door did this and they spoke about that. So, I mean, if that was, I'm trying to say, if my perspective is, if that was me, I would have been said, listen, I pointed out the guy, but you got to give credit to the community affairs officers and the other and Officer Dolan who actually stopped them. I'm sorry, Officer Grant, Officer Grant, who actually stopped them. And those are the guys that did it. And like you said, those guys were in harm's way more than, I mean, everybody was in harm's way there.
Yeah.
So
More,
I mean,
they
they stepped up and really did a great job. So
yeah, no, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So hopefully somebody in here said this promotion's next week.
let's hope, right?
So I know you usually get copies of the orders before me. You send them out to us. So hopefully you get them and we can highlight that. And next week we'll be congratulating him on his promotion, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so listen, we're 43 minutes in on before we even really get started, but I think it's important. I think it's important to highlight the good and what was overseen and is now being acknowledged. So the acknowledgement is definitely warranted. So anything else on that before we move on to the stuff that came out yesterday?
Sure.
Nothing else?
No, that's good. I mean, what do you say? We're like how many minutes into it already? We didn't get to the
3 minutes into it already.
That's good.
But and if we're still having a problem with Facebook, unfortunately. So yeah, so it comes out that Mayor Mamdani and Commissioner Tisch announced the codification of the body-worn camera policy. So what does that really mean? They come out and they say that let me see if I can bring it up because I think I knocked it down by mistake. But basically that I lose it. I lost it.
What I thought codification is for like a law. Is it? This wasn't a law though, was it?
No, they're just making it a policy.
Yeah.
They're making it a policy. So I got to bring this up a different way. I'm sorry because I somehow knocked it out.
Because I remember years ago, right? There was, I mean, not years ago, but even guys when you tried to FOIL request the body-worn camera, right? It took a long time to get even for anything, right? So What do you think about that? What do you think about them, changing this now? I think you're muted.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had some stuff going on. Yeah, I think this is a much ado about nothing, to be honest. I mean, all right, they're codifying, they're making it official, but since Tisch has been in, it says it right here, right? So, they announced that the has formally codified its practice of releasing body-worn cameras footage in certain situations within 30 calendar days of a critical incident. The practice has been regularly followed during Commissioner Tisch's tenure and is now a formal department requirement. Again, it's not the law, but
Right.
it's a policy. So there can always be exceptions, right? They're not going to be, they can't be held in contempt and anything like that, right? The 30-day standard applies to incident involving a discharge of a firearm by an officer that results in a member of the public being struck, as well as police use of force that results in serious injury or death. The commissioner may also authorize the release of body-worn camera footage in other circumstances when doing so would help maintain public order or contribute to public safety. So basically, if there's any high-level incidences, where things could start popping off, she could put it out there to try and quell it, to show, hey, listen, this is what really happened. Because we know, when you get those social media clips, those 30-second clips of a 20-minute incident that just are sent out there just to incite the public to go out and start more trouble. That happens all the time.
Yeah, I agree. Like you can break down a video, right? And parts of it you'll show, and it'll look like the cop was totally off base, but they didn't show what happened prior to that, right? So, and that's a lot of what the media does. They'll show this clip and it'll be like, oh, this cop was way wrong for doing this. No, you didn't see what happened prior to that. And I guess putting out the body worn camera will show some of that stuff, that the view of what the officer, though, even though we have said in the past that you don't know the feelings, you don't know what the officer saw. I mean, his peripheral vision might have been different than what the body worn camera was looking at, so you might have different perspective. Now, I question as whether or not this should have been the policy all along. I don't know why it's necessary to announce this now. To me, it has some political implications. Is this something like, hey, we're going to do this now? But I thought in the past, like, every time you hear a press conference, right, from the NYPD, they'll come out and this is based on what we've seen and body worn camera that we reviewed. So yeah, why can't you give it out to everybody else, right? It would make sense, So I don't know. I think there's some political. Is it Mamdani saying, hey, you got to get on my page, get on page with me, and we're going to do this right away? And she's like, okay. Or was she? Because she could have been doing this all along if she felt that it was going to. And one thing, I agree wholeheartedly with you that it can quell something immediately. But in the city of New York, sometimes even if they show a police body worn camera, it's not quelling anything. So,
right.
But
people are still going to complain. People are still going to view it through their own lens, and take their interpretation of things and use it for the purposes that they want to use it for. If people want to use it to incite, they're going to use it to incite. If people want to use it to try and quell it, they're going to try and quell it. So I agree, and I was thinking the same thing. It's like, this is a big nothing burger to me. She's been doing that. Every police involved shooting that anybody's been hit, she's been releasing the video within 30 days. We've discussed the videos. We talked about, the most recent one was the tragedy of the emotionally disturbed person that came at the officers with the knife, and they had to discharge their weapons to protect themselves. And he was shot and wounded. And of course, everybody came out and everybody has to say, the social worker should have been there and not the police. And, the police were too violent. And, we discussed that. There was nothing else those cops could have done. I think those cops did a phenomenal job retreating, trying to close the door, create a barrier between the two. And it didn't help, unfortunately. So why are they bringing it up? Do they need something, like you said, for optics to show that they agree on something? Because he's been so laxed on supporting the police, and I'm trying to be nice about it. He's been so laxed with the support of the NYPD and everything that's gone on with the snowball fight, right? It's just a snowball fight. That's all I saw. He didn't see anarchy. He didn't see assaulting a police officer. He didn't see total disregard to lawful orders, total disrespect for the law. He saw kids having a snowball fight, not a 24-year-old pelting officers with frozen ice and snowballs with rocks in them and whatnot that were shown on future videos. He took days to come out and speak about that. He took days to come out and speak about an ISIS-inspired bombing. Days. It's just where
he played the victim too on that one.
Right. And then talks about how it was, an anti-Islamic protest. When it wasn't anti-Islamic protesters that threw IEDs. It was radicalized Islamics. And again, we're not knocking everybody in the Muslim faith. We're knocking the radicalized, ISIS-inspired jihadists that tried to kill protesters and police. That's who we knocked. That's who we criticized, and we'll continue to do so. So before we start getting called, Islamophobic again in the comments, that's not the case whatsoever. But you see that they were so far apart and not on the same page. He refused to use those terms. He refused at first to say it was a terror attack. Just that some other people chose violence was his initial statement. And whereas Commissioner Tisch came right out and said it. And now there was rumors and I don't know how much truth there is to anything, but that there was pressure from City Hall and limitations put on what the NYPD could release at their initial press conferences. Well, he should have been there. He should have been leading that press conference. Any other big city, we talked about this last week, any other big city, that mayor would have been front and center. The governor would have been front and center on an incident like that. And because they had enough information up front to know exactly what was going on. But I digress, and we're going back again. But again, I think, maybe this is a point where they needed to get together and make a joint statement. Because again, she's just making this, and again, does this now put it in the city charter that it's the requirement of the NYPD to release these certain videos within 30 days? Okay, I'm fine with it. I have no problem with it, because you know what? I've been a proponent of body-worn camera from the beginning. I disagree on what they've come to use it as a tool and a weapon against the rank and file for disciplinary purposes and for now CCRB purposes, where they could be self-generated, when that was not supposed to be the case. It was supposed to be used for training purposes, unless total egregious behavior was observed, corruption, serious misconduct, things like that. But, the White Sox offense and things like that weren't supposed to be what these body-worn cameras were about. The body-worn cameras were to reduce frivolous complaints, which it did initially, and to have the ability to share with the public the hard work of the men and women every day, and to give a view that people don't understand, to quell those rumors and innuendos when there's some type of incident like this.
Yeah, I mean, my thought when they first came out with the body-worn camera, and I was kind of sold on it, was I thought, okay, this will save the police officers when there's a frivolous allegation. It'll show the hard work that the police officers did. And even I was against the emergency service unit wearing them when they eventually told us that we had to wear them, because we gave them a list of maybe 10 times where we wouldn't want to use them, right? So you wouldn't want to use them at a tactical meeting to discuss tactics, because that, that could be FOIL requested, and then somebody could get the tactics that ESU uses on an entry, or what's talked at, a TAC meeting before at the precinct with the precinct personnel about what's going to happen. So some of these things we were against, and now it just seems to be used completely on the other side. I've been at those force meetings where they put stuff up that, and like, what are you doing about this guy who did this, and this? And you're right. What should be done? It should be retraining. It should be a tactical refresher. It doesn't have to be discipline. So that's where it becomes problematic. But they're here to stay. So I mean, guys have to work around it. And releasing them, within the 30 days. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't know if they can review them that night. You can release them right away. Like I think it was somebody mentioned in the chat, like, are they trying to quell things that are going to happen in the summer? All the demonstrations that are going to happen. So I mean, who knows? So I just think that, yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely political implications in this alliance between the mayor and the PC, and 100% what you said. The governor, the mayor, and the police commissioner, and the deputy commissioner of intel or counterterrorism should have been the only ones at that press conference, because this was an attack on New York City. This was just not an attack on NYPD officers or demonstrators. This was you allow terrorists to enter in your city and throw improvised explosive devices. That's an attack on the city, and that leaves everybody vulnerable. So they should have been there to not only to stand up on what happened, but going forward, how we're going to look to prevent this. So I think that, yeah, there's something going on there.
So I just for clarification, I believe you just gave me a spot on.
Oh, well, I got one?
No, I think you just gave me one.
Oh, I did. I don't know if am I allowed to give you one?
I don't know. You're the chief, so maybe.
No, that's not true. We're podcasters here. So wait, can I give myself one then?
No, you can't give yourself a positive craft.
Like a positive craft.
No.
I give myself a positive spot on.
I don't know how that works. All right.
I
So
don't know.
what does Mamdani say about this, right? So transparency and accountability are building blocks for public safety. By codifying the timely release of body-worn camera footage, we are ensuring that New Yorkers receive timely information about critical instances. This policy builds public trust and ensures our city receives answers while protecting the integrity of investigations. And again, maybe they're just making a statement because they want to try and bring down, like you said, or somebody in the comments said, that they're trying to bring down the temperature before it rises for the summer, because this is what she's been doing since she's the police commissioner, and I'm going to agree. Again, like I said, I'm a proponent of body-worn cameras. I'm not a proponent of using them as a weapon. And again, listen, if the same officer is making the same mistakes repeatedly, like anything else, training is no longer the answer, right? But because you've retrained people, because there was a window of pretty much everything was a retraining issue, and then it went to discipline. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of that, and the whole thing about when late activation and early termination of the body-worn camera, of when you were supposed to put it on, right? And then they used the term dashboard to dashboard, and then they even got away with that because they wanted to turn it on even earlier. But it's subjective as to when they're going to gig you and say that it was a late activation or an early termination of your body-worn camera. Becomes subjective, and it could be used for discipline. And I think that's bullshit, as well as, the ability of, and we're going to get into it next, but the ability of CCRB to use it in order to self-generate these complaints, because the way they look at things is very subjective. And again, we know that they're not looking at things objectively and giving any benefit of the doubt, putting themselves in the position of the police officer whatsoever. But then Commissioner Tisch, you have anything on his statement?
No, I was just agreeing with you again. I'll give you another spot on there. But the fact that, you know, CCRB can just bring it up and take a look at it and say, you know what, this warrants a complaint, and they don't even have a real complaint. It's just, to me, it's just, you know, bizarre that you're using it totally against them.
Yeah, we'll get
So,
to CCRB in a bit, because you know there's a whole bunch of stuff. They watch stuff on, we just like we watch stuff, and I pull a lot of my videos that we use on the show off of X, right?
right.
From that people post, you know, whether it's viral news, who gives us permission to use his videos, or just anybody, any random person on X that's posting these things, whether it's been reposted 20 times by 60 different people, you know, 60 times by 20 different people, whatever the case may be. And however it comes across my feed and it catches my eye, I see it. Same thing with CCRB,
Mm.
you know? And the more you look at certain things, we know the algorithms will send things towards your feed, right? So when they're looking at all these police-involved incidences, they're going to get these police-related videos, and they'll make complaints just off of seeing something that they saw on. It doesn't even have to be body-worn camera. It's just a video on X. But Tisch's statement, you know, same thing. Transparency is key to maintaining trust between police and communities we protect and serve. Body-worn cameras provide clear and objective. I don't agree with objective accounts, because again, it's subjective because of who's watching it, because you're not in the mindset of the officer, as we've discussed ad nauseum, right? You're not in the mindset of the officer. You're not in the heat of the moment. You don't have the experience and the training of the person that's wearing the body-worn camera when you're just watching it. But clear and objective accounts of interactions involving the NYPD, showing the dangerous and difficult situations that officers often face, while also ensuring we hold ourselves accountable when standards are not met. The formal commitment to release footage within 30 days of a critical incident is a continuation of my pledge to ensure transparency regarding the work of the department. So there's a lot to break down in that statement. You know, again, I don't agree that it's objective accounts. You're getting an overview. You're getting one officer's view, chest level view, right? You're not getting a peripheral view. We've discussed that, right? You talked about that all the time. The camera's looking straight. The officer could have been looking left and not see the same thing as the camera. So you're going to hold the officer accountable for what he saw, because it's on his body-worn camera, and he may not have saw that, or she may not have saw that, right? So you're getting a clear view from one angle, you know, of how they show it. You know, it does show all the difficult situations and helps people to understand the things that the officers do have to confront. And a lot of times people that do look at it objectively and reasonably, to see that, wow, this guy's coming at the officers with a knife, you know? Even though we'll tell you someone's coming at you with a knife, you don't tase them. We've been very firm on that. Eric is huge, and John is huge on that on their show, right? Talking about the tactics about that. You don't tase somebody coming at you with a knife. It's just, you know, the old adage, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. You don't bring a taser to a knife fight. You're armed in order to defend yourself and defend the public. And if somebody's coming at you with a deadly weapon, I'm sorry, you have to use lethal force to stop that. And you can't risk using a taser that is 50% or more ineffective in stopping someone. Plus, we know, what is it, the 23-foot rule? Is it, if I'm going back 35 years now, is it the 23-foot rule? They say that even if you shoot somebody coming at you with a knife and they're within 23 feet, they can still reach you with the knife. So, you know, a taser, yeah, could it bring somebody straight down? Because, you know, the electricity goes through the body and, you know, tenses you up and you see them drop immediately. But you have to get both barbs in, and there's just so many different variables. So what do you think of her statement?
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, it's a statement that makes sense, because it's been in effect, though, right? she's shown dangerous and difficult situations. You and I have commented on certain, videos of police officers jumping in the water, or police officers, discharging their firearm. So I mean, it all makes sense. I mean, to say that this is a formal commitment, okay, we're committed to releasing them in 30 days. I still say 30 days is a long time. There's a lot of time for misconception. Like I said earlier, if the executive staff or whoever's investigating it, or whoever does the press conference, is saying that I base this narrative, subject to change, whether they use that same terminology, but then they say that they've looked at the body-worn camera. This is depiction of the incident that's happened based on body-worn camera. So could you put it right out? Probably. You could probably put it right out. So, but yeah, and in respect to what you talk about with somebody charging at you with a knife, I mean, let's be real. Like we see, like you said, these tasers are about 50% effective. I've seen people get tased and still be able to go through it, depending on the person. So, yeah, are you getting 50,000 volts through your body? Absolutely. But some people are able to work through that. So you have to, unfortunately, you have to use your firearm with somebody who has a knife, because you're putting yourself in harm's way, especially if you're in that position where you don't have any cover or concealment. So, and what's going to happen next? Is it going to have body-worn camera on your head where you have a 360 view? No, I mean, that's not relative. Nobody wears hats anyway in the police department anymore, so you can't have that on there. But you're going to take that perspective from the camera. So I mean, there's a lot there, and I guess you can give her credit for saying that she's going to put this out and agreeing with the mayor for this. But I don't think that's anything that hasn't been done or couldn't have been done before this. So I guess, is she ensuring transparency? I think she should have been ensuring transparency since she took over the police commissioner position. So to me, it's nothing new.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Listen, I mean, as far as the 30 days, being a lot, it's not a lot for an investigation. It's just one part. Body-worn camera is just one part of the investigation. You need witness statements. You need, a lot of times you're going to need the officer's statement, which you're not probably going to get for 30 days because you're not going to get a DA's clearance. What people might not realize is that if an officer is involved in a firearms discharge, before the NYPD can speak to that subject officer, they have rights under their union, rules and their contract, and protections that, certain things, there's time frames on when they can be spoken to. It's within a reasonable amount of time. There's no time frame, but it's in a reasonable amount of time. But if an officer is removed from the scene to the hospital because of tinnitus, which is in every officer involved shooting because of the volume and the percussion from the discharge, they're going to have ringing in their ears, so they're going to go to the hospital and they're going to get checked out, right? They used to send to the hospital for trauma. Thankfully, they came up with tinnitus instead because, trauma. Then the next thing you know, people are starting saying, well, if it was so traumatic, then is he mentally, ready and okay to, continue in his duties? But tinnitus, but also that the investigators from the NYPD have to get clearance from the integrity ADA, the assistant district attorney. They have to confer with the district attorney's office to ensure that they're not going to be looking to press charges against the officer, because there's a rule that says that if you're interrogated by the department under what we used to call the GO 15, right? It used to be General Order 15. Now it's 216, 250. I don't remember the number anymore. But the same thing. It's interrogation of member of service. So if they're entitled to representation before they're interrogated by ranking members of the service, they must answer these questions. that are narrowly related and specifically directed to their duties. But what they say under that interrogation cannot be used against them in a criminal case. So therefore, the district attorneys tell us a lot of times, don't talk to them. Don't ask them questions, because what they say can't be used in a criminal investigation. So if they're looking at things and there's a question of this might not be a legitimate shoot or a good shoot or whatever you want to call it, they don't want you speaking to the officer. So you can look at their body worn camera now. And somebody made a comment in here is oh, you can't use a GO15 transcript or tape, but you have now body worn camera. So that's why you also have to be careful what you say when your body worn camera is active, because that is accessible and that can be used immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I've done numerous investigations where the DA has asked you not to to speak to the officer, and you usually you comply with it. You based on for the protection of the officer, and now, yeah, is everything he said or everything they've done? That's why you used to interview the witness officers, right? If somebody didn't, if one officer shot and the other one didn't, that was the officer that was getting questioned, and then the first supervisor on the scene, the condition of the weapon, et cetera. So yeah, there's ways, but I mean, 30 days. I mean, yeah, does that buy a little time? I guess she could release it earlier if she wanted to. So I think that I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I just still hope they still protect the police officers. When about about their own body worn camera and stuff. So I don't know. It's a slippery slope. With the body worn cameras, you got to be careful what you say and what you do. You could similar conversations just on any job. Could turn into discipline now. So yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that they utilize this to quell questions or quell things that are subjected to violence or anything else, or what misconceptions that the media or people on social media are putting out. Protects the cops.
Yeah. So Mikey G63 asks, are you guys going to discuss the off-duty cop GLA, grand loss in the auto, stolen vehicle for Lily and those who don't know, shooting that occurred in the Bronx? No, we're not. You can go back and watch Eric and Marlon in their show this morning. They discussed it. They gave their perspective on that incident. We're not going to speak about that tonight. Whether we speak about it in the future, if more comes out. Not a lot came out. There's not a lot to it besides the video, right? The job's not really saying much. But we do know that he was modified originally. Now the detective or police officer is suspended, so which means they probably found out a little bit more. Whether I don't know. I don't want to speculate because I didn't look deeply into it. I was preparing for the show, and but I know I watched most of the show this morning, and they went into it and discussed it pretty deep. So you can go back and watch Marlon and Eric. John's on vacation this week. You want to say anything on it?
No, I agree with you. I mean, John and Eric. I mean, John and Marlon, Marlon and Eric broke it down pretty good today, and they spoke about it, and I know that if you go back and look at their podcast, they specifically had questions relative to why was that person there, and what was he doing, and what investigation were they doing on their own. So there was a lot there. There's a lot of speculation. And there's a lot of information. So I think it was a good podcast, and guys should watch it and understand how maybe not to get involved when you really shouldn't. Right? We talk about involvement all the time. The best. And I mentioned in the chat today. I said that if you're not if your family member or somebody else that you're with there is not you're not involved in the robbery or whatever. The best thing you do, and they always said this in the police academy, right, was observe and dial 911. Give a description, what's going on, and then you kind of protect yourself. So unless you have to take specific action because somebody's going to get hurt or somebody's going to get shot or et cetera. So that's my advice.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think there's really much information that's out there on it. You're really not getting much. You got that video, which I didn't watch it too closely. I don't see, you know, it's uh, it's tough. But yeah, it's you really got to be careful what you're getting involved in, especially if you're personally involved. Supposedly it was a family member's car, his car, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, go back and watch Eric and Marlon's show today. Marlon's in the comments today, fire detective. So go back, good show. And so that's that. But yeah, we've been talking a lot about CCRB and with the body worn cameras, right? And you know, the before Adrian Adams termed out on January 1st or December 31st as the speaker of the city council, he tried to push through a bill that would give Civilian Complaint Review Board direct and fast access to NYPD body camera footage. And the bill is going to give them, in real time connectivity to network serving host digital files of the body worn camera, because they don't want to wait anymore for the NYPD to provide body worn camera, redacted body worn camera footage. And there's reasons why we redact the information before we give it to them, because we're aware, as the NYPD legal, it goes through the NYPD Legal Bureau, we're aware of, when cases are sealed and, names shouldn't be released or information should be redacted. And you don't have that with the Civilian Complaint Review Board investigators. So, the unions fought it, and the bill passed in December. But on December 31st, outgoing Mayor Eric Adams vetoed the bill. So in January, just to bring people up to speed, because some people think that because the city council passed it and you haven't really heard much about it. So that's why I wanted to bring it up today. We're talking about the body worn camera stuff. He vetoed it, and in January, the city council overturned 17. I believe it was 17. I wrote it down somewhere. 17 mayoral vetoes, but they didn't have the supermajority, the 2/3 vote, to overturn this veto. So this bill is not in effect. The CCRB does not have the access they were looking for, and that the city council was looking to give them. So they are guided still by the memorandum of understanding that went into place in 2019 and it was updated in 2023, right? Because originally the CCRB, the NYPD was supposed to provide unredacted body worn camera footage within 10 days, which means that if there's no reason to redact it, 10 days. And then any redacted footage within 25 days. But it never happened, right? It never happened. The turnaround time is too much. It's too close, and they never got it. But then there was a big department investigation, looked into it, and said that the NYPD was not providing the body worn camera in a timely manner, and that in line with also with the Freedom of Information, the FOIL requests. They were taking so long, which is true. I mean, Marlon mentioned he's got FOIL requests outstanding for 2 years on certain things. And what the job does is they basically stall you, they deny you, and then you have to put in an Article 78 and basically appeal. And then what I saw in the in the investigation from DOI results was 95 was like 90 some odd % of the appeals, the NYPD lost and had to turn over the information. So it's basically just a complete stall tactic on the NYPD because they had to give over the shit anyway. But in 2023, the NYPD agreed to give over the footage within 90 days. You know, but they're not legally mandated to do so. So there's still cases where they really selective cases, juvenile victims, sealed cases, and everything else that they give the CCRB a hard time. Good for them. I'm sorry. In this case, you know.
Well, I think there was rumors that when Caban was the police commissioner, right? They were, deferring it and not relatively cooperating with CCRB, holding things back, and that was his way of, I guess, maybe, I don't know, not necessarily protecting the cops, but having the fact that these CCRB investigators who have, in my experience, have no police experience at all. They come out of college, they're put in this position, and now they're investigating and criticizing you. What you do is to me is sinful. And to have access to to either a live feed or things that aren't redacted. I mean, think about it. We interview, unfortunately, rape victims, women, domestic violence, even men of domestic violence. So you're talking about, interviewing victims and now giving this information to a non-law enforcement, investigative body that who knows what could happen with that video and stuff. So, I mean, we're responsible to protect the victims of these crimes as well, and to make sure that, they have the rights and privacies that they're entitled to. So I totally agree that, they should never, ever be able to get a live feed or, something that's not, redacted or reviewed by, John, when John was in IEB, right? He was a CCRB liaison. So, make sure that, review what they're asking for, and then make sure that it falls within those guidelines before we give it to CCRB. And I've said in the past, I always give Jerry Flood, from the A team, a lot of kudos, because he used it. Our guys on the A team, so the A team was the emergency service guys that would do the warrants, right? They would do the early warrants. And I'm not taking anything away from the guys in all the other trucks, because they would also, fill in and do the warrants as well when the A team wasn't available. But the A team basically just did the search warrants or arrest warrants, sometimes street takedowns, etc. So they were pretty proficient in what they did, but they would get a lot of CCRBs. So, and it would be just, the person, they broke my door down, they did this, they threw me to the ground when they came in the room, which is our procedure, right? Everybody down, get down the ground, get on the ground. And that's what they have to do. They have to take control, right?
If you don't go on the ground, you get put on the ground.
Exactly. And Jerry would go down there and talk to the CCRB investigators and explain to them why we do all of this. And then a lot of those CCRBs were either, back then, was either exonerated or unfounded. So, I mean, I give him a lot of credit, but we're talking about a group of people that have no police experience, and they're judging the police officers. That would be like you and I, Ron, going to the doctor's office and say, you should have used the retractor when you cut open that guy's chest, and you didn't use the right retractor. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous, So I don't know. I don't know. That's my take on that. So, just so Reed's asking, Flood was a sergeant. He was Jerry Flood was the sergeant.
Yeah, he was the man.
He was. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I mean, listen, they've been given more and more authority to the CCRB over the years. And, first, after the settlement, they gave the authority of CCRB to actually be the prosecutors in these cases, to prosecute their own cases, because they felt that the NYPD wasn't prosecuting enough. So now now if CCRB wants to prosecute you, they prosecute you themselves in front of an NYPD administrative judge. Now, yeah, the police commissioner has the right not to take the case and to overturn it and say, we're not giving charges in this case. And as you've seen, with Caban, it happened a lot. With Tisch, it doesn't happen so much. She allows the charges to go through. And also, they look to utilize and overutilize the disciplinary matrix to, for punishment purposes when they're looking for the punishments. But they're also allowed to use these body-worn camera cases and look at these body-worn cameras to now bring forth charges of bias-based policing. And John and Eric did a big segment on that, a whole show on what is bias-based policing. And John and Eric, they actually attend virtually the CCRB meetings and propose that question to them, which they really couldn't answer. They didn't have statistics on how many they were and how they determine what's in somebody's head as to the reason behind they took police action that made it a bias incident, that this officer was biased against you, right? I could be biased against Italians. I could be biased against blacks, Puerto Ricans, Jews, Muslims. What's to say that because I stopped somebody, I'm stopping them because of their nationality, because of their ethnicity, right? Unless I'm actually physically saying it, which you may get. Yeah, I'm not saying that there aren't biased police officers. We all know, just like there's corrupt police officers. And as Pete Pacelli always says, right? Nobody hates a crooked cop more than a good cop, a bad cop more than a good cop, right? Nobody hates a biased cop more than a good cop because it's a stain on all of police when they're out there and they're not acting in a professional manner, right? But again, you're giving a biased agency who does not give you due process more and more authority to negatively impact your career. And it's not going to change under this administration. It's absolutely not going to change under this administration. So,
listen, as a cop, I worked in the 4-1, a sergeant in the 2-5, as a lieutenant in the 4-0, all predominantly Spanish neighborhoods. If they said I was biased because I pulled over too many Spanish people, that's the demographics in a particular area.
Yeah,
How can you tell me that I'm biased? Because if that's what in that area where I'm working, my precinct that I'm working is all that particular ethnic group. I was hard pressed to find a white guy driving in there. I mean, I'm not saying that there weren't. That most of the white guys driving in there in the 4-1, they were either looking for a prostitute or they were buying crack and cocaine on Seneca and Hunts Point and Seneca and Bryant, which I'm probably sure they're still doing this day. But I mean, you can't say that it's biased policing because of the amount of people that you pull over and the ethnic group. And I've said it in the past, Ron. We've spoken about this. Usually, when you see a car go through the red light, I'm pulling you over because you went through the red light. I didn't even see who's driving the car when you went past. I'm looking at the light. I'm looking at the crosswalk, and I just saw you go through, and I pull you over. That's it. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the infraction.
And like John had said too, that all of these laws and all of these mandates that keep coming down and coming out of City Hall, like the How Many Stops Act, which addresses what you're talking about, right? You're saying that I'm pulling people over because they went through red light, right? So now you have to document every time you pulled somebody over and whether you gave them a summons or not. So now they're trying to say, I'm trying to prove that you're pulling people over and only giving black people or Hispanic people, because that's what they say, black and brown. They don't say anything else. They don't say Asian. They don't say Muslim. They don't say Indian, South Asian, Pacific Islanders, anything like that, or white people, right? They're saying that you're being biased against black and browns, disproportionately black and brown people. And so they're coming up with these forms and these mandates in order to try and prove, because they don't have the proof. If you're unable to prove it, maybe it ain't true. And again, we're not sitting here saying that there aren't biased people in the police department and that people aren't doing things that are bias based. And those people should have the consequences, if that's the case. They should face consequences because that's not what we're here for. That's not what the police are for. Police are here. We're supposed to be apolitical. We see that that's out the window, right? Cops have to be apolitical, but the upper echelon and everybody else, we're totally driven by politics, and it's ridiculous. But
just can you pull up TC? TC makes something I've said, and I've experienced the same thing when I've done a car stop. Right, it stopped the guy with blackout tints. Right, you can't even see in the vehicle, and he said, "You pulled me over because I'm black." And I told him until he rolled the windows, I didn't know who you were. 100%. 100% with that. How can you even say that? Like, I pulled you over because I pulled you over because you have excess tint. Well, you pulled me over because I was black, Hispanic, or whatever. How could I? I couldn't even see you. So, I mean, that statement in itself is 100%. I've experienced it where the first words out of somebody's mouth was, "You pulled me over because of this and because of that." No, and I'll explain to you why I pulled you over. But don't make the assumption that I pulled you over because of this and because of that. So I think the people, the CCRB is just fishing for other stuff to do. Maybe they're looking. When John and Eric had gone on to that live CCRB, and I forget the last time they did it. I was actually able to listen on, and I think it was one of the nights that we were going on. I had to jump off because we were doing a podcast and they were still talking, but. They did an excellent job, and the point being is, it just seems to me, is CCRB looking for more funding, for something else to do? What's the goal of it? If there hasn't been numerous complaints about that, then all of a sudden they're looking to do that. And another fact that they can then ruin a guy's career or a gal's career for the rest of their lives, because you know what? If there's allegations or there's things like that, and you try to go to another department, you try to go to another job, even if you try to date another, somebody from the opposite sex, or in some cases the same sex, that somebody looks that up and says, "Hey, you were racist. Look at all of this. Look at that." Just the same thing with Eric. Eric talks about it all the time with his CCRB, where the allegation that he stuck his finger up somebody's butt. That said, this what girl is going to say, "Well, I don't know what you did out there," So it's just bad. And you had mentioned it earlier that
might be a positive.
Why does that stay with us for the rest of our lives? True.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true, because he was found not guilty in the trial. That's a perfect example of what I talked about earlier. He was found not guilty in the trial room,
Right.
but yet if you look up his CCRB record, he is found substantiated that he did it.
No.
And in the trial, they said, well, because he was in close proximity, we found out, we ascertained that it was him. And they did that trial without a complaining witness who's locked up upstate in jail. So he was not cooperative and gave no statements to them. They went off the video from the cells. Ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It's sad that they can bring you down on BS allegations, and that just stands there. What amazes me that it stands there for the rest of your life. That's not a fair assumption with that 50A. So,
yeah. All right. Anything else on this before we move on to the next?
No, I'm good.
All right. So another thing that's going on just came down, and it ties into things that we've talked about. And again, John and Eric, because it's the whole Finest Unfiltered network, right? That talks about these things. And again, a lot of people think that we're being negative. And even when we critique videos, and I got some shade thrown at me for last week because we didn't go with the whole everybody's a hero and everything was perfect and everything was great and it was such a success narrative last week, that we were pointing out what we believed from our perspective and our years and decades as executives were things that could have been done differently, and showing it even following within the protest settlement agreement. But we got some shade thrown at us. People think that we're negative against cops, and couldn't be further from the truth. Everything that I do and I say is to try and help, to try and guide people. And if I bring up, which we're going to bring up in a little while, things that people might have done wrong, or in my opinion, were tactically deficient, it's only not to throw shade at that person, not to complain about that person. We talk about the Monday morning quarterbacking all the time. It's so that hopefully people can watch and see what happened, see what other people have done, so that they may not make the same mistake. And it may save somebody's life. It may save somebody from getting themselves in trouble or jammed up or a CCRB or a lawsuit or hurt or something. Knowledge is power. And we're just trying to take our experience on this podcast and project to some people not a newscast, it's a podcast. Give our perspective on incidences that are in the news, like this case here, as well as some videos that we may show that are out there, right? So that's it. It's my perspective. It's Rob's perspective. It doesn't mean it's the truth, and it doesn't mean it's the only answer and the only way things could be done and should have been done. It's our perspective on ways things that might have been done differently that maybe somebody can think of in the future to do differently. That's all it's about. So here, again.
No, I was going to say, and our perspective is so that you can take the knowledge and experience that you and I have, right? The over 65 years of police department experience, and make your own decision. We're not telling you that do it this way. We're not making patrol guy changes here. We're telling you what we think, and you should take everything. You should take things that are not what you believe, things that you believe, and then make an informed decision. But without the information that we're giving out, without the information from Eric, John, and Marlon, without the information from Tom and Pete, and the experience of all the people that they bring on their show, it's your opportunity to put all that together and then make an informed decision and do your job. That's all. We're not looking to, like you and I have said oftentimes, we're not looking to tell anybody they should be fired. We're not telling anybody that they should be, we'll give our opinions on, and I will have no problem with it on whether the person should have been modified or suspended or no discipline at all. That's my opinion. And you and I know that we've been in that position where we've made that decision that this person should be this or that because of the experience and the conclusions that we came. That's all. We're, like Detective Nolan right there is saying what works and what hasn't not worked and what is possible. He sums it up perfectly right there, just to say, and that, hey, take what we give you and use it, and decide for yourself. That's all.
And and again, and we don't deny that. Listen, I've been off the job for 2 years. You've been off the job a little longer. We know the job is not the same. We say it all the time. It's not my job anymore. And that you're up against things that we weren't up against as police officers, especially because we police officers in a completely different era of policing, and spent a majority or a very good portion, if not a majority of our careers under Commissioner Ray Kelly, which was a total different way of policing and way that executives acted in the administrations that we were involved in. And then we saw the changes as we came into the 2000s. And, it is what it is. So we acknowledge that. But it's a podcast, not a newscast. It's our perspective. And we're not always going to be positive. And I really try not to be negative, even when there's negatives. Like, I think there's going to be some negatives when we discuss this case. But maybe we could give some advice that might help an officer that gets involved in something similar. So here, an ex-New York State trooper was found guilty of manslaughter in a 2020 crash that killed an 11-year-old. Christopher Baldner is only the second state trooper to be charged with homicide in connection with a fatal vehicle pursuit and the first to be convicted. And the first one was in like 1925, and the guy was riding on the running board of the car and shooting. So it wasn't quite the same. It's not like when you read that, it kind of doesn't tell the picture. It makes it sound like, you know, somebody else that was involved in a vehicle pursuit that ended in a fatality. He's really the first modern day police New York State trooper to be charged in connection with a fatal vehicle pursuit, right? And when he was first charged, he was charged with murder too, right? Second-degree murder, and also reckless endangerment charges, right? But a jury acquitted him of both murder and reckless endangerment, but they deadlocked on the second-degree manslaughter charge, right? Which is a depraved difference, right? So the judge declared a mistrial, and there was a second trial that began, you know, about a month ago.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. So, you know, the assistant state attorney took the case because the state attorney's office, the attorney general's office, right, takes over a case when there's a death due to police action. That came about in 2021, right? She told the jurors that his latest in the latest trial that he chose to recklessly use his police car, his patrol car, as a weapon during the chase north of New York City, right? His defense attorney said that the driver, Tristan Goods, who acted recklessly and caused the death because of the way he was driving, right? So he faced charged with second-degree murder, second-degree manslaughter, and 3 counts of reckless endangerment during the first trial. And the judge had instructed the jury to consider the manslaughter charge only if, because it's a lesser included charge, only if they could not find him guilty of murder. So the former trooper was also charged with 3 additional counts of reckless endangerment for similar September 2019 crash in the same area on the thruway. So here, there's not a ton, and I tried to find other articles, and I really couldn't on the case. But from what I read inside this article, he pulled over this guy. This guy had his wife and 2 kids in the car for doing 100 miles an hour, and they got into a little thing, right? And the guy, the officer goes back, gets a can of mace, goes and sprays them, and then the guy takes off, and it becomes a major league pursuit.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard as a police officer, right? That somebody takes off on you, because the initial thing for you to do is always to pursue and to catch, right? So, and I think the only one that's really, I mean, you could pursue in New York City, right? Depending on the conditions, the time of day, the crime or violation that you're chasing them for. I think the only one that's really allowed to pursue is highway, right? They're allowed to pursue because I think of you're on a highway, so you kind of have to pursue people anyway. But
the rules are the same for them. It's just a matter of,
the perception, right?
You're not in a highly populated area, so you're not going to get pulled off as often.
Yeah, no, I mean, they would still terminate if the risk outweighed the danger to the public, and rightfully so. So, but I mean, as a cop, you want to chase somebody, you want to catch them, right? So, I mean, but we've seen tragic chases before. We've seen a chase where somebody mentioned in the chat earlier, where the 2 officers chased somebody into Manhattan that you and I did a podcast on, and the car ends up making the turn and catching on fire, and they literally turned around. I never heard what happened to those. I don't know. Did they ever lose their job, those 2 officers?
Again, that's another one that goes by the wayside, and then you don't see it. But with this one, like I said, his wife and 2 daughters were heading north from Brooklyn, whatever, an argument broke out between him and the trooper. Goods does, I hate this, call a supervisor. Like, they don't think that the police have the authority on the scene without a supervisor. And they don't realize that we've talked about in the past about the Supreme Court cases that allow you to remove people from the vehicle, and then people refuse. So, but it says that the trooper went back to his cruiser, got a can of pepper spray, and sprayed the passenger cabin. And then the wife and 2 kids began screaming, and then he fled the traffic stop and he gave chase. So right here, we don't know what the argument was about. We don't know why he was requesting a supervisor. We don't know all these things. But, when you take it into consideration, like you brought up the NYPD, right? So last year, Tisch updated her policies, right? Which basically, once again, she codified the policies that have been in place, right? That when cops can pursue, that only the most serious violent crimes, felonies and violent misdemeanors, right? Not for traffic infractions, violations, or non-violent misdemeanors. So basically, people can run on you, right? Discretion is guided by the location of pursuit, whether it's in residential community near a school, playground, or like you said, on the highway, right? Additional responsibilities placed on the supervisors to actively monitor. And I'm going to get into the state police policies on this, right? But this is for the NYPD, right? And officers are not going to be criticized and disciplined for terminating things, right? And new technology enhancements to improve record keeping and increase compliance. And that's those GPSs that you shoot out on the thing, and the drones and everything else that she's talking about. But like you said, it's always been, when the risk outweighs the public, right? But it's not just the public, it's others, right? So, but this case brought scrutiny on the agency, which is the New York State Police, their pursuit policy and discipline practices, because, excuse me, this guy, right, had a documented history of ramming vehicles during pursuits. In the 2020 collision that killed the kid, the trooper told another trooper he wanted to write one more ticket before his shift ended. And then he pulled him over for doing over 100, like I said, right? But he's got past incidences, right? They noted that he had a 2019, just the year before, where he ran a disabled minivan head on following a pursuit. And then he lied about what happened. So why is he on the Brady list? And what was it brought into light, the disciplinary history and the disciplinary policies of the New York State Police, which I don't know what they are. But I don't know what happened with that, right? But he was accused of ramming the Dodge Caravan carrying 3 people on the throughway, also up in Ulster. And then the driver lost control of the vehicle and resulted in a collision, spinning him into the median and crashed into the guardrail, according to the indictment. So what are the New York State Police policies? They're not much different. They are different because they do allow you to pursue a little more leniently, I guess, and they do allow you to have vehicle contact, where you could do what the PIT, the precision immobilization technique, which we'll get into in a second, right? So, but when you look at it, it's the same thing, keeping people safe, take into consideration the risk between catching them and then letting them get away and trying to catch them another day, right? But yet, high-speed pursuits, by their very nature, can pose a risk, and this is right in the New York State Police Policy and Procedure Manual, right? Can pose a risk to the public health and must be carefully managed to minimize this inherent danger. Later on, it says members should make every reasonable effort to apprehend suspects in a fleeing vehicle, right? Therefore, pursuits may be initiated whenever the violator refuses to stop. But vehicular pursuits may present a substantial danger to the public, to pursuing members, and the fleeing subjects, right? The pursuit must be terminated when it becomes apparent to the member involved that the immediacy of apprehension is outweighed by the clear and unreasonable danger to the public or to the members. So now my point with this is it's not just he's chasing this guy because he pulled him over for 100 miles an hour. The guy was a dick to him, wants a boss. I want you to call a supervisor. Whatever the exchange is, we've seen it a million times on social media, right? These exchanges, these Karens that refuse to give the paperwork, refuse to roll the window down more than this much. Call your supervisor. I want your supervisor. Cops don't have to call a supervisor to the scene. They don't have to. They have the right to conduct their stop on the probable cause of the infraction that they observed. He observed him doing over 100 miles an hour, pulled him over. We don't have to go any further. I don't need a supervisor. You know, you want to make a complaint later. You want a supervisor, that's fine. I'll call one, but we're not going to stop what we're doing between now and then. That's how I feel about it. You know, what are your thoughts to this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't necessarily ever heard anything where they say, I want to talk to your supervisor. That seems to be like something that's on Instagram and YouTube, and everybody else is like, I want to talk to your supervisor. You know, you have First Amendment auditors that say that. I want to talk to your supervisor. I don't think you're under any obligation. You know, I think in some aspects, maybe some departments require that if you ask for a supervisor, they get one. I don't remember that policy ever to be in the NYPD. So you pull somebody over for a traffic infraction. I don't know if that trooper, if he had gotten that person's information, you know, but he goes back to his car and gets mace. To me, I have a problem with that. That's the worst thing you can do is mace somebody that's in the driver's seat of a vehicle. And the reason I feel that is because if that person does take off, I've been maced. Not on purpose. You know, I've been in the
We all have.
Exactly. Because what happens when cops use mace? The perp never gets maced. Every cop there is tearing their eyes out, snot coming out of your nose because you just got maced. But I don't want to mace somebody that's in the driver's seat and have that person take off and now poses a risk to while they're driving full of mace. You know, then you can't see, your eyes are tearing. I mean, if anybody's experienced the mace, whether you're a bad guy and got maced and you're watching the podcast, or you're a cop and your partner maced somebody and everybody in the room gets maced, you know the detrimental effects of that. I mean, when Eric Dim was during the 2020 riots, was on top of that car getting the high ground, I was literally maced. And I don't know if I was maced by the cops, by the SRG guys, or some of the perpetrators, because the perpetrators had their mace also, and they also came up with some milky water thing to spray on themselves after they got maced to kind of wash the mace away. But I was literally coughing up things that I never thought were in my body that day. So when you get mace, it's terrible. But to mace a driver and then allow that person to drive away, I think that's even more dangerous, right? Especially if they have a wife and kids in the car. I mean, to me, that wasn't the right thing to do. The other thing is, I don't know if you got that information, but if you have a license plate and that's a match and everything else, you know, like we've said, you know, if the guy is going to do 100 miles an hour and it's a danger to other people on the highway. I mean, if you go New York State Thruway, I've rarely been on the New York State Thruway where there's not a lot of people driving. You know, it's a major thoroughfare. And I just think that you're putting people in harm's way. Now, I understand you want to catch the guy, so that's where I have a little bit of discontent with not just letting him go. But what would I have done? I probably would have pursued a little bit. But if we started going in excess of 100 miles an hour again or further, I think I would have disengaged, right? I mean, it's hard to do, but my partner and I have done it. You know, when I was a cop, we've disengaged, and you cracked me up before when we talked about the patrol guide and the supervisor monitors, because you know, as a sergeant, lieutenant, duty captain, you can't get on the radio because as soon as you say Patrol Borough Manhattan North duty captain essential, you Yeah,
Yeah, you got to go to another. We got to go to another radio division. Have the dispatcher
yeah.
tell that dispatcher.
You got to go to Citywide or something and say, "Hey, terminate that pursuit because you couldn't get through."
Yeah, and then somebody's texting me about, why didn't you just call for backup? You got to remember, troopers, New York State troopers, they do drive solo, and and backup isn't that close all the time. It may be a local jurisdiction, a township, a sheriff's office, or something like that might get there before another state trooper because they may be spread out. Why he had to go back to his car for the mace, why it wasn't on his person, I don't know.
He got the big,
maybe he had one of those big canisters.
He got the bear mace.
But I don't know what that does. But this officer, this trooper, was decertified prior to the trial. Once he was indicted, and he retired just short of his 20 years. Again, I don't know what we don't have all the information, so we want to be careful. Again, we're Monday morning quarterbacking, but what I want to bring to people's forefront when they're thinking about these things is, listen, you're chasing somebody, it's one thing, but now you're chasing a family with kids in the car. That's another thing, right? What are they allowed to do? Right. One of the things that they are taught to do, and somebody mentioned here that New York NYPD highway is taught the pit maneuver. I don't know that that's true.
I don't know either.
I don't know, but they have a vehicle contact action, right? This initiates a deliberate collision or ramming between the patrol vehicle and the pursued vehicle for the purpose of terminating the pursuit. So that is part of the New York State Police training. However, everything that I've read about the precision immobilization technique, right, the pit technique, right, which is basically you pursue them, you pull alongside them, you hit them in the rear quarter, and you continue to push them to spin them out so that their car stalls. And that's what you're hoping for. But everything that I've read with the pit is you don't do it to an SUV because of the higher center of gravity and the likelihood and the likeliness of an SUV to roll over because of the higher center of gravity. And they were, again, take into consideration, they were driving an SUV. So now you're driving the people are driving an SUV, right? You have kids in the car because they're screaming and yelling. So you know that you have kids in the car. You've identified the vehicle. Again, we don't know. It's not mentioned anywhere that the vehicle didn't match the plates and the driver didn't match the vehicle. It's not mentioned anywhere in the defense that would increase his or alert him and put him on a much higher alert as to the need to make this apprehension so imminently that he chased them in speeds in excess of 130 miles an hour. So, this is what the pit maneuver is supposed to look like. We've seen it. You've all seen it on TV, on the newscasts with the helicopters are following them, and or even on a lot of times you'll see it on social media. A lot of the videos will come out where they're doing the pit maneuver and they're spinning these people out, and it's very successful. And other times you see where it ends tragically with like a massive, massive thing. So you're supposed to take into consideration, right?
Yeah, I just let me jump in real quick because Robert Murphy too, wise guy. I know him, so he said Sully would never engage, or disengage. So Sully was my partner in the 4-1, and we worked midnights, right? And we got a lot of GLA callers because that's where they would dump cars in the 4-1, right? So he's right. When I said to disengage, that was with my first partner, Mark. Sully would never disengage. And the reason Sully would, we would work midnights. There was a low risk, right? It was easier to pursue. And I always tell people the way we used to do it was I would run a plate, right? It would come back 16, which means it's stolen, right? You guys, Central say it's 10. She'd always go, 10. She goes, Sector Ready, what's your location? And as soon as you knew that, you knew the plate was stolen, because now she's going to try to. And we would just say we're following. And what we would do is just follow the car, not put the turret lights on, and then let all the other sectors come in, and we box them in a lot of the times. But yeah, were there a couple pursuits? Absolutely. And he's 100%. Sully would never disengage. So that's my first thing. Then I want to talk about the pit maneuver, right? You spoke about that. I was a victim of a pit maneuver, but it was not by the police, though. Hold on, it was not by the police. I lived up in the 4-7, and I was coming over the, and it was a good part of the 4-7. It wasn't the bad part. I came over White Plains Road on 233rd Street, and a guy came out of the intersection and hit my rear quarter panel, and I literally spun all the way down 233rd Street and smashed into a parked car. I was a lieutenant at the time in the borough. I was on the way to work, but that was my pit maneuver. So the pit maneuver definitely works, but we've seen videos. And then my last point, and I'm sorry to go on a little bit, but
Yeah.
I just told I question the father, right? Where's the culpability for the father? His intent, was to drive away. He also acted recklessly, and I think that's what a lot of maybe the troopers and a lot of other law enforcement are saying is, all right, you want to blame the officer for doing the pit maneuver, you want to blame the officer for chasing the car, but the father in the car knew he was going that speed, knew he had what I believe was she was unbuckled, right? The daughter was unbuckled, or she was ejected out of the vehicle. So I don't know how well she was in the vehicle, but where's the culpability for the father too? So you want to try the police? Let's also try the somebody else that's also responsible for the death of their daughter as well. So because I'm telling you my truth, if I have and my wife might disagree with some of my road rage antics, but I've learned.
My wife is like Mike Kemper. Don't make eye contact.
And then that's 100%. That's the best advice you can do, and that's what I do now. Because as soon as if you don't make eye contact, you can't see the person giving you the finger, and you don't have to respond back to it. So I think you have to close. And here's the other thing: in Florida, you can't do road rage. In Florida doesn't exist. You know why? Because everybody in Florida has a gun.
We got a gun, right? Yeah. My wife was like, "What are you talking about? What are you saying?" Like, I'll say something. I'm like, I'm not talking to them. The windows aren't down. It's like I'm not getting into it back and forth. I'm just commenting and bitching out loud, and I get criticized for that. But yeah. So things that in deciding whether to pursue a vehicle, like you're talking about, right? Use good judgment and carefully consider the following factors on a cumulative and continuing basis to determine whether the risks of pursuit are warranted, right? So the things we always talk about, nature of the offense, right? Your safety, the safety of the motorist, but here's a big one, the passengers, as well as pedestrians, which I don't think there was pedestrians there, right? Your driving capabilities, the type of vehicle being pursued, right? Whether it's a motorcycle, an ATV, which pose greater risk for injury of the operator. Like I said, everything I've read is you don't do it you don't do a pit maneuver. This is just for pursuits, but now incorporate the pit maneuver also. Take into consideration, you're not supposed to do a pit on an SUV, right? Again, I'm speaking from what I read. I was never trained in this maneuver, but it's what I've read online, right? Road conditions, traffic conditions, time of day and night, your knowledge of the area, population, but your knowledge of the violator. So again, it gets back to, did the plate come back to the car? Because you're gonna run the plate before you get out, because you want to know if it's stolen or not, what you're dealing with, right? Then if you've identified the driver and the operator of the vehicle prior to your little conflict, or is he just like, I want a supervisor doing the Karen deal, whatever the case may be. But I just think with him, right, his history and the aggressive nature, going back, macing the entire passenger compartment when you know that there's a woman and children in there, right? But they're also not allowed to do a pit maneuver, right? Barring extraordinary or life life-threatening circumstances, which I didn't read here, just that they're doing 100 miles an hour. And are you going to say that the life-threatening circumstances that he's doing 100 miles in excess of 100 miles an hour with 2 children in the car? Well, the fact that you're pursuing them is, again, I understand the driver is culpable, the driver is responsible for their actions. But if you're pursuing them with the knowledge that there's kids in there, you can't take it personal. You can't take it personal that they're going to get away from you. And that's what cops do sometimes. They make it a personal thing where, I can't let this guy get away. I can't let this guy get away. Get him another day, right? But the following method of terminating a pursuit should only be employed only with the approval of a supervisor. And that's moving roadblocks, like you talked about, getting other cars to come in and block them in, stationary roadblocks, vehicle contact actions, which is the PIT, or using tire deflating devices, right? Throwing out the chains and getting them to do that. You can only do that with a supervisor's thing. And I didn't, again, don't have all the knowledge, but it was not in the case, in the article that we read, that a supervisor approved it, because that would be part of your defense, right? Hey, listen, the boss said it was okay to do it, right? They're not saying that, right? Because things don't end good. Here's the 2024 NYPD stats, right? There were 2,278 vehicle pursuits, documented vehicle pursuits, right? With approximately 25% of those pursuits resulting in some combination of a collision, property damage, or physical harm. And they don't say, what percentage got away. Just that 25% of the pursuits ended up in some kind of crash or somebody getting hurt. And 67% of the pursuits are for the results that they fled a car stop, right? Which is no longer authorized under the policy, which is kind of tough because you're basically telling the public, if you get pulled over and you drive away, we're not allowed to chase you. So that's where I'm conflicted with that. But here, again, a lot of times when I was a boss for, I was a cop for 5 years. So I was a supervisor for 26, right? For 26 of my 31 years. And an executive for 21 of my 31 years. So whenever you ask, what do they want it for? And then there's silence. You pulled them over for some bullshit and they took off on you. So now you're looking for a reason. Possible GLA. That's always the answer, right? It's a possible stolen vehicle. Well, yeah, every car driving out there is a possible stolen vehicle. And you're going to take into consideration, well, they're fleeing the police. There's got to be a reason why they're fleeing the police. They're probably wanted. They're probably suspended license, or they're just idiots, right? But, failure to yield, failure to stop. They took off on a traffic stop, before I could put it over. It's not worth it.
No, hey, just so you know, Eric gave us a spot on, fellas. So I think that's 1-1 there. So that was at 1909, right? So that's for both of us, right? So evens us up, I think, a little bit, maybe, I don't know. But
no, because you got one at the beginning of the show. We can't.
No, you told me that I was invalidated because it was from the previous show this morning.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you can't get spot on this show for a comment you made on Eric's show.
Right. Right. So it's 1-1. So, but listen, so on the state highway, right, the state thruway, some of those exits are 16, 20 miles away from each other. He could have easily disengaged and could have said, hey, coming up on
is there anybody up
exit
there?
16, next one's 20, have a car there, wait for the guy to pull over. A lot of times when I was in SOD, aviation would be called up on a pursuit. Aviation has the technology to pinpoint a vehicle and follow it with the computer and actually track it to where it goes. So even when it goes under a overpass, it'll still pick it up on the other side. It's pretty interesting technology. And then what they do is sometimes they'll wait till the guy parks at his house, or waits till the guy pulls in a gas station and gets out and gets gas, and then alerts patrol to go and get the guy. So that, yeah, there's other ways to do it. I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't like the idea that we tell the public, hey, it's okay to pull away and we're not going to pursue you. I think that's like showing our cards, and that's ridiculous. And that empowers people like that who are just going to say, F it, I'm going to pull away. But with respect to that individual, now I don't know if he was combative or not, but I would have said, yeah, you want to talk to my supervisor? Step out of the vehicle and come over to me here on the side. You know, I can't tell you how many times if you're driving up New York State Thruway, up Route 17, Route 84, all the places that you see like 5 guys on the side of the highway standing there, and the state troopers got them all, you know, pulled out of the vehicles, which is their right, right? We've spoke about that. John and Eric have spoken about that on car stops. You can tell people to stay in the car, or, you know, NYPD policy, stay in the car, or you can take them out of the car for your own safety. So, but yeah, that so I would have done it maybe a little different, but I think that I don't know, you know, I think he, like you said, and you mentioned, made a good point. I'm not going to give you a spot on because that would put me in the hole. But you said that he took it personal, and I think that's it right there. He got mad that this person was pulling away, and in reality, who really gives a crap, you know? So you'll get him another day. You have his driver, you know, you have his license plate. I mean, you know, push it forward that way. So. Yeah, you're muted there.
Did the Marlin, but
Yeah, that's all right.
kids
Always
are,
started the day off with a mute.
yeah. Oh yeah. So,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. Discussing policy is one thing, but criminal conviction here is chilling in its future implications.
That's
Again,
true.
what we're trying to do
Yeah.
is just point out. Listen, again, we're making some speculations here. We are. We don't have all the facts. We're not
No.
claiming to know all the facts. We're not trying to convict. We're not a jury, and we're not trying to convict this officer. We're just pointing out where we think that things could have been done probably differently that might have resulted in a different outcome where he wouldn't have been put in that position. And again, I know, and Rob knows, that we're dealing in a different time of policing where they are looking at prosecuting police officers more than they ever were in the past for actions that are taken on duty, where it may have been, you know, an excessive force civilian complaint, and now they want to charge you with assault. And we saw that one officer that was assaulted because the DA decided that the first 5 strikes were justified, but strikes 6, 7, and 8 were excessive, and it was an assault 3. It's ridiculous. And I'm sorry I don't remember that officer's name, but you know, it's ridiculous. And I do understand that, but this is the first New York State trooper that's ever been convicted. So I think I have to lend a little bit of credibility or you know, to the extenuating circumstances that lead in the favor of violation of policy and recklessness, a history showing a history of recklessness in the past and disregarding things. If in fact he did lie in the past, if that is a true statement and that has been proven, and if it's brought up in court and it's not, you know, negated, it's possible that it's a proven fact. I don't know for sure, but again, that takes into consideration his credibility and his integrity. So we're not going to sit here and defend every cop's actions. So I don't listen. I don't know if all the facts and circumstances would lead me to convict him if I was sitting on that jury. I don't know. Again, we're Monday morning quarterbacking, and we're going to Monday morning quarterback a little bit more in a minute. But, and saying, you know, listen, you got to think, you can't take it personal. They're very dangerous. Vehicle pursuits are very dangerous, and they hardly ever have a positive outcome. And that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. These things just, listen, this story just sounds no bueno. And I know we're only getting one side of it. You know, we're only getting the the defense attorney's clips that the newspaper wanted to put out. We don't know if it's a right-leaning or left-leaning news article and publication. I don't know, but just things. It's a very dangerous thing, and there's different technology out there now, right? There's different technology, like you said, aviation now. If you can get aviation up to track these vehicles, that's a great thing. They have these trackers that can shoot out of the bumper and it magnetizes onto the car so that you can track the car that way, right? The use of drones. You know, if you can get a drone up quick enough and the batteries last long enough, maybe you can. We've seen. Listen, we highlighted a vehicle pursuit where a drone was instrumental in the case. So it's possible. It does happen. So, you know.
Hey, Marlon said that he had a microphone malfunction. So I'm going to say he's using an affirmative defense right there on his mute. That was from earlier. But yeah, I mean, there is a lot of technology out there that can help you. I mean, like Joe Mango saying, like darts, right? They can shoot out from the bumper of a vehicle. I think there's also netting that they can shoot out and tie up the wheels and things. I mean, is it if it's that important to stop a vehicle, then I guess you could use that technology. Some of all of which I don't think any of the NYPD has. I've never heard anything other than, like you said, the drones, right? So we can get the drones up and follow the vehicle or whatever. So, but there's other options than to pursuing, because, like you said, we've seen the tragic results of pursuits, and with this pursuit, it's tragic that the police officer, the trooper, is being charged and possibly facing, jail time. It's absolutely 100% tragic that an 11-year-old girl lost their life, whether at the hands of their father or at the hands of the police officer. I mean, regardless, there's a family that's in mourning, and I would ever hate to, see that. And that's why you kind of tell your kids, right? When you're going to go in a car with somebody else, make sure they're not drinking, make sure they're not wanted for anything if you can, right? You don't want to all of a sudden the guy's taking off and your poor family members, the passenger in that vehicle, and I've seen things where just excessive speed has killed people, right? So I mean, it's a 2,000 to 5,000 pound deadly instrument. And you got to be very careful with it. So
yeah, and just to Leo's point, where he's saying, things could always be done differently, but it seems like an overcharge to get a cop. Manslaughter presupposes intent to cause harm, maybe reckless endangerment, but manslaughter, just so manslaughter in the second degree, which is what he was convicted of, right?
Yeah, recklessly, right?
Yeah. When a person is guilty of manslaughter in the second degree, when that person recklessly caused the death of another person, the following terms used in the definition have a specific meaning. A person acts recklessly with respect to the death when that person engages in conduct which creates and contributes to the substantial and unjustifiable risk that another person's death will occur, and when he or she is aware of the consequences and consciously disregards that risk, and when that risk is of such a nature and degree that disregard of it constitutes a gross deviation from the standard of conduct that a reasonable person would observe in the situation. So, under the facts that they're laying out in this case, I understand why they acquitted him of murder, they acquitted him of reckless endangerment, and why they were deadlocked on the manslaughter, right? So some thought it was, some thought it wasn't. So the judge found a mistrial for that charge, and he was tried on that charge. So they felt that he acted in such a reckless way, and that he was aware of the circumstances and aware of the risks, and found him guilty. And again, I'm not saying I would have found him guilty if I sat through the trial, because I don't know all the intimate details and all the facts, right? So, and Rob brought up, there's other methods, right?
Can I just comment on that reckless thing? If I remember from the police academy, it was a scenario they gave, like a guy's in a sporting goods store and there's all people around, and he picks up the bat and just starts swinging it aimlessly around and clocks somebody in the head and kills them because, trauma to the head. It's a reckless, it's a manslaughter charge because they recklessly caused the death of somebody. Like, that person should have perceived the risk while they were swinging that bat in the sporting goods store that somebody could have been around, because it's obviously a public place, and then somebody gets hit in the head and dies. So yeah, I mean, is it? I mean, I'm glad it's not a murder charge, because murder, you talk about intent and things like that, but a manslaughter does have that reckless charge in it. So I mean, do I agree? I don't agree wholeheartely with it, but
And to your other point, we don't deny that has culpability. We're not saying that.
TC says, no, Rob, that's a foul tip.
So just today, I'm getting ready, and I see another vehicle pursuit. Right, car takes off on the Hillsborough County Sheriff, which is Hillsborough is in Florida, and it's the county that encompasses Tampa and St. Petersburg area. So
okay. Hold on, I just want to explain one thing about Hillsborough. Okay, my daughter driving in Hillsborough, they have cameras everywhere. They have cameras on buses. I literally paid $500 in tickets for my daughter because speed camera and the bus was on the far right side of a 6-lane road, and she didn't think to stop, so the bus camera caught her. So $500 in tickets. So be careful in Hillsborough.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, but they have the technology. They have technologies, right? They have a grappling device. A grappler is a device where you get up close and it shoots out and it wraps around the axle and allows you to disable the vehicle in a safe manner. So let's take a quick look at how that works.
Grapple. Someone get up here. He just made a U-turn. He's still grappled. He's trying to go northbound. We're right across from these Atwater at West Chase Apartments. He's still grappled. He's trying to move forward with the car.
Stay on your face.
What did I do?
Lay down on the ground. Face
down.
On your face. On your face.
Cool shit, right? Like TC says, as retired NYPD, this is all Batmobile shit.
Yeah,
But it's true. They have these, and I was lucky to have an AC, right? And TC, so I know that you not only do you have an AC, you also had a milk crate. We know that, right?
Yeah.
Holding up the seat together. So yeah,
that was mostly the Chevy Caprices, right? It was the milk
Yes.
crate. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just, showing that there was other technology out there. And so a lot of other people have it. We don't have it here. It was pretty cool. You watch the video. If you notice in the beginning of the vehicle, in the beginning of the video, you see the push bars go down.
Yeah.
So when they acted, I guess they push it down, and then the grappling device must, move out or whatever, or it exposes the grappling device. So
Listen, I'm not going to say anything bad about the Hillsborough sheriffs. I live too close.
we love Hillsborough.
Yeah. God bless you guys.
But yeah, so 2 hours, 24 minutes into it. Do you want to do the other videos, or you want to go into asking exact? hold them for next week.
We want to do one of the two videos. I thought they were pretty good. So
Which
you
one
know.
do you want to do? You want to do the transit cop, or you want to do the car stop?
The car stop, I thought, right, was good. Let's do both. We could do them both. What the hell?
All right,
Got a lot of
quick.
Stammer tonight. Sleepy Joe. We got Stammer.
Yeah, there you go. Sleepy Joe. Hashtag stamina. So, all right. So the NYPD puts out body worn camera. Speaking of body worn camera, right? You want to put this out because you want to hype up what the cops are doing. And again, the 75 precinct public safety team pulls over a livery car, and they get a passenger in the back with a loaded gun, right? Great job. Took a gun off the street. That's saving lives. Nobody in this incident gets hurt, including the perpetrator. That's great. So let's take a look at it, and then we're gonna Monday morning quarterback just a little bit. And again, the reason that we're gonna do that is because we want people to keep in mind certain tactical disadvantages that they put themselves in. So let's take a quick look at the video.
Yo, take him out. Take him out. Take him out. His foot. Step him out. Step him out. Check him out. Got him? Get it? Sir, don't move, all right? Sir, don't move. Don't put the car in park, please. Firearm right there on the floor. That's good?
So, hey, listen, good job. Good job by the officers. There's communication between the officers. Now, take him out. The officer on the passenger side identifies the gun under his foot. I don't know if they have code words. Take him out as a code word, maybe. We don't know. So I'm big with, having a code word so you're not raising up the perp to let them know that, you have a gun in there. But, what stuck out just initially on the stop is when the officer gets out on the passenger side. And again, great job. But the code word was gun, says TC. But when the officer gets out, you see him with his flashlight in his left hand. Now he switches it to his right hand. So my point being here is that I don't know if he's lefty or righty. I don't know which his dominant side is. He never took his firearm out on the job. I don't think anybody broke leather on this job. But say I'm nitpicking in the comments. Say I'm talking bad about the cops. I'm not. I think they did a phenomenal job. I think they saved lives by getting this gun off the street. They're out there doing proactive police work. They pulled over a livery car, whatever their reasoning it was for pulling it over. As they approach, in plain view, they observe a loaded firearm. Great job by these officers. All I'm saying is you have to be mindful to not have things in your gun hand, in your dominant hand.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why you should have your taser, your flashlight on your non-dominant side, right? Because you want to be able to always be able to transition to your gun at any given time, right? So even in ASU, you'll see that when somebody transitions, they'll either throw things down or whatever, but you want to make sure your dominant hand is free to take that control. This is just the same way as we blade the body back, right? You put your dominant side back so that if you need room to draw, you have room to draw your weapon. So, hey, great job. Yeah, absolutely should be a code word. I agree. You can't yell gun. It should be either, we used to say,
Hey, Nolan, give me a spot on.
Nah, come on, you can't solicit. Remember, you accused me of that last time. That's invalidated now. So, But you also 26501 something you can use. Some code or whatever. But yeah, your dominant hand
And listen,
has
take
to
him
be
out might be
free.
it. Take him out
What's
might be
that?
it. Take him out might be it. Who knows?
It could be. I'm not saying
Who
it's not. I
knows?
think it was a really really good job. I mean,
Yes.
they did 100% job, and I mean, so
And
what?
listen,
A,
it was
a little training, yeah, that's all. That's it. But yeah,
not even
100%.
not even training. It's 265 Lily is the code for a gun, right?
Yeah,
So
it's a penal law code.
it's the penal law code 265. So it's not even it's not even. I'm not trying to knock the guy at all. Like I said, great job. And it's not even long that he has the gun, the flashlight, but it doesn't. I'm going to show in the next video. It could like that. As they're approaching, had he not thrown the gun to the ground and decided to start firing, I don't know which hand he's dominant in. I don't know which hand. He changes the flashlight from his left hand to his right hand. So is he a lefty? And he could have withdrew his firearm right away, or was he a righty and he was just getting the flashlight in there better? I don't know. So I don't know. But at one point he has it in his left hand, then he has it in his right hand. It should always be in your non-shooting hand.
That's when I did car stops, I on occasion I would take the gun out no matter what and blade it behind my leg or whatever. I know that the department's looking at not even to do that anymore. That they want every time you take out the gun a force report or whatever. But I mean,
did you miss the part about Eric's opinion on that? Is Eric still in the air? Eric had an opinion about that exact move, which was a 90s move. That was a cop in the 90s move.
Yeah.
We were taught by the senior guys to do that.
Yeah, you wanted to have it out. I mean, the car stop's one of the most dangerous jobs, right? You don't know what you're dealing with. So I mean, I don't have a problem with that. But at this point, I would definitely have my hand on my gun, at least going up to a car stop. And remember, there's 3 posts in the car, right? So there's the A, B, and C posts. The A being the front windshield, the B being the center one, and the C the rear. So use one of those posts in the vehicle as a point of cover, also, right? So that you'd be able to prevent a fire, a shooting coming. I'm not going to say stop it, but it could deflect or whatever. But use that, and the other thing is, right, we ask people to roll your windows down so you can see anything. So, and I've said it before, I do that when I get pulled over. I take every window down, I put every light on at night, so they know, because it just alleviates some of the speculation, and it makes the police officer feel a little bit better that I can see everything. It gives them the advantage. Yeah. But yeah, so I agree with you.
Yeah,
not a spot on though.
TC is saying no job is handled perfectly. We know that. And It's always room for improvement. 100%. Job has harped so much on the negative, which we do agree with. Guys are always on the defensive on criticism. You can't be. You have to be open to constructive criticism. To just mention, all we're doing is mentioning this. We're saying, if you noticed, I hope it comes across that our emphasis on this job was great job. Great job. They took him out. Nobody got injured. Nobody got hurt. No excessive force used or even alleged, because you saw that he just got out of the car, went right down to the ground, got handcuffed. It wasn't dog pile. The officer wasn't screaming and cursing. The officer was, telling the driver, "Sir, don't drive away. Stay here," because it was a livery. All we're saying is if we're having criticism, it's just that for his safety in the future, try to be cognizant to keep your gun hand free. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, that's it. I totally agree. I think, like Detective Nolan says, the mind thoughts must always be tactical. You always have to kind of think, or tactics are taught, but they must be practiced, because we do also, it's a learned, and you have to a trained type of a thing. You always need to be trained on. You always need to rethink about it, because if you don't, it can easily, you could lose it and you can forget about it. And a big problem is you can get in complacency and into bad tactics. So it doesn't hurt to be criticized about that. Great job by those 3 officers. I think they did a phenomenal job. They got a gun off the street, and they could have saved that taxi driver's life. So I mean, they did a great job. So
good job. All right. So this next one, I had to cut this into pieces because YouTube would never allow us to play this, because if anybody has seen this, this turns into an officer-involved shooting with multiple officers firing multiple rounds at this vehicle. But again, I bring it up, even though it happened in New Mexico, because it's the exact same situation. And I just found it odd that just pay attention to this officer. I'm going to say it up front so we don't have to say it on the other end, because we've all just discussed it, right? So we don't have to rehash the whole thing. Just the officer's a lefty. He's a left-hand dominant, and his firearms on his left side. So just watch the video. It's the same officer that's speaking to the driver, and then I cut the video to when he's talking to the passenger who winds up having a firearm. And then there winds up being an officer-involved shooting, because the video is going to stop when the perp raises the gun and fires at the officers before the barrage begins.
Hi, how are you?
Good, ma'am. Do you have your driver's license
I
on
do.
you?
I'm looking for it actually right now.
Hang tight for me for a minute, okay? Hey, stop reaching around, dude.
I'm not doing nothing, bro.
Stop reaching around.
God damn.
Leave the window down.
Just talking to her.
Open the door. He's reaching.
He's reaching.
Let me see your fucking hand. Let me see your.
Don't. Hey, tase Drop it. Drop it. Don't do it, man. Don't do it. Tase Don't do it. I'm going to tase you.
So you see there at the end, he takes out his gun and he fires at the officers, and then they just open up. One other thing that's like a big deal to me, I don't understand the officer giving the instruction or the suggestion to tase him, and them actually tasing him, because, like I said earlier, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. You don't bring a taser to a gunfight. I don't know any training with the taser that says you should tase somebody that has a firearm in their hand. But again, you see the whole time he's speaking to the driver, the flashlight's in his left hand. Then when he's on the passenger side, he's writing down the passenger's information with his left hand into a pad, and then takes out his flashlight with the left side, and that's when they see the gun. And then all these guys see the gun. They see that he's grabbed the gun and he's refusing to put the gun down. And their inkling is to break the window and tase him. What are your thoughts on that, real quick?
Well, we talk about escalation of force, right? So if somebody prevents or presents themselves as physical force against you, you can use your nightstick, back in the old days, your nightstick, your ASP, right? Your PR-24. You can use a taser. And if they have a weapon in their hand, a knife, the next escalation for yourself is your gun to protect yourself. And if somebody has a gun right off the bat, that escalation is already equal to what you can present, which would be your firearm to them. Okay, there is absolutely unequivocally no reason to pull out a taser. And the reason police officers, in my opinion, do this nowadays is because they're criticized wholeheartedly for everything. Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you use the taser? Did you try this? Did this? They talk about that escalation, and you have to follow these procedures. When you don't, you could say, I saw the guy had a gun, and I think it was the TC had mentioned about you don't have to wait for the glint of steel, right? We've talked about legal bulletins where you don't have to do that. So if somebody presents their firearm, you don't have to go, okay, I can't go physical, so let me go to the taser. I can't go to taser. I got it. Now I go to my firearm. No, if they've already presented themselves and you believe that they have a firearm, then go right to the level of force that's equal or greater, right? And like they've said, we don't, like TC again says, we don't fight fair. We fight to win, right? So we have to escalate faster than they escalate. So I'm not happy that he brought the taser, like you said, to taser to the gunfight. You don't bring a taser to a knife fight. You need to escalate equal, if not better, to what that person has, and that's to save yourself and to save any victims or anybody else that could be in harm's way. That's what we do. So that's my take on that one. I agree with you. I think you're muted again.
Yeah, the kids are in rare form today. Sorry.
Want a taser?
No. All right. So again, like that's in New Mexico, and they lit this car up, and then there's other questions about crossfire. We watched the video together earlier. There's questions of crossfire scenario, but unfortunately, a horrible outcome. I'm sure. I don't think that man survived. I don't know what the outcome is, but it is what it is. So 2 hours and 41 minutes. We'll do one more. This is a video that's circulating around. It was reposted by Viral News NYC. I don't know who the originator of the video is. We see time and time again people coming up into officers' faces and disrespecting them, and you're having to sit there and eat the bullshit that we never would have ate when we were cops. Again, we policed at a different time, but it's it is what it is. But I think these officers, in some ways, we'll talk about it after. Let's take a look at this video. It's a couple of transit officers outside a train station.
Pull the fuck out of here.
All right, get out.
Yeah, fucking East Indian faggot. I'm going to the next train station. Pull it out now.
Yeah. Hold your teeth.
Pull it out now. Pull it out now. Get, pull it. Pull it.
Get back.
Watch me defend myself.
Get back.
Pull it.
You ain't
Pull
doing
it.
nothing. You ain't
Yeah,
doing nothing.
pull it.
You ain't doing
Pull it,
nothing.
nigga. Pull it.
Moving.
Pull it. You fucking East Indian
Yeah,
faggot.
keep it moving.
Pull it. I'm going to the next train station.
Stop coming.
Pull it.
Keep it moving.
Pull it. Pull it. I'll light your ass up.
Yeah?
Yeah, pull it. Pull it, nigga. Pull it. I'll light your ass up. Pull it. Yeah, pull it. Pull it. Pull it. Yeah, pull it out.
Move back.
Yeah, pull it. I don't got nothing. Pull
Move
it.
back.
Yeah, pull it.
Move back.
I don't got nothing. Pull it.
Get out.
I don't got nothing. Pull it. Pull it, nigga. Shoot it, nigga. Shoot me. Shoot me, nigga. Shoot me.
Move back.
Shoot me, nigga.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think John had mentioned, right, in one of his Twitter accounts about, the officer with the stairs behind him. And I think that's a really valid point. You want to always, see what's behind you, because if he charged that officer could easily push down the stairs. To me, if you're gonna arrest that individual, then take the taser out and shoot him and arrest him or whatever. But if you're not going to do anything, don't take that taser out unless you're going to use it. I mean, I don't understand if you're not going to affect the arrest. And listen to me, at that point, the guy's in your face. He's being annoying. We've talked about these First Amendment auditors, these people that are looking for a quick buck. Get arrested, they'll sue or whatever. But if you're going to do it, then do it. Take your action. So that's what I think about that. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, like John said, because I had already actually saved this video before John posted it because I was like, John beat me to it, but that's the detriment of having a weekly show, and he put it out on social media, which we all do, right? But 100%, look at him. If this guy wants to get aggressive and just give him one good shove, no matter how strong this guy is, he's going down those stairs. So very, very dangerous. The first thing he should have done was step to the side. I understand he's trying to stop him from entering the station. I don't know if they had ejected him prior or if they encountered him at the top of the stairs. I don't know. This is right by it looks like it's right by Transit District 2. But
that's in Manhattan, I think. Is that?
Yeah, it's in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he's an auditor. I don't know.
No, I was just.
I don't know. I know what you're saying. This is what we deal with. This is what cops are dealing with nowadays, right?
Yeah.
To me, it gets to a point where he's threatening the officer.
Pull it, nigga. Pull it. I light your ass up. Pull it. Yeah, pull it. Pull it. Pull it. Yeah, pull it out. Yeah, pull it. I don't got nothing. Pull it. Yeah, pull it.
So he's threatening these officers before the officer does anything. Now, I don't know if he was arrested. We don't see the end of the video. This is, again, one of those clips. You just see one clip. You don't get anything else. Hopefully, he was arrested because taking out your taser and pointing it at somebody is a use of force, right? So, yeah, he definitely should have been arrested. I'm sure people don't realize that menacing doesn't need to have a weapon. You can be physically menaced. It's a misdemeanor to be physically menaced. So if somebody chests up on you and threatens you and gets all tough and threatened, that's a physical menace. That's to physically menace somebody, and you could be arrested for that as a misdemeanor. Harassment of police officers is never going to stick. But even if he gets EDP'd afterwards, action needed to be taken other than just taking out your taser and threatening him to step away. I didn't see them call for any backup. I don't know if it was already on the way. Again, possibilities. But I think that at least they took some action. Hopefully they followed through and there was an arrest. And they took him in, but they didn't just stand there and listen to this guy scream and yell in their face and threaten them. So I give them that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it looks like they do push him back. I will kind of agree what Neil 01 says. Perhaps the cops should have just tactfully retreated and then let the guy's next action dictate his fate. That's true. You could have backed up a little bit, and then if this guy continued to harass you or menace you, you could have taken action. And I totally agree with you again that we don't know what happened. Maybe that's why we don't have the rest of the video, because the guy was tased and he was taken to the central booking or to the hospital as an EDP. So, but yeah. Like we've said, if you're going to use force and you take it out, don't threaten, use it. And I mean, to me, I would have been like, all right, I would have taken the taser out and it would have been taser, and it would have been deployed, because at that point I was already committed myself to utilizing it. So and hopefully he did light him up, so. That's what we'll see, because he deserved it. And we talk about training, right? John and Eric also spoke about that with Marlon, also about that 5-day course. Is this going to encompass this to save, the officers so that they understand what they can do? But clearly, I think this officer knew that he had the authority to stop this and not let this guy get in his face. So I give him credit for that too.
Here's a name I haven't seen in the chat before. Raymond Houston 24 says salute. So salute to you, Raymond. Welcome to the show. If it's your first time, I hope you're catching up. Maybe you've been in the show but not in the chat. If not, go back and check us out. We appreciate it. Hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons. Get that algorithm going. We're at, I think, where are we at? We're at Where are we at now? We are
I think 148,000. I'm seeing
148,000 subscribers for the Finest Unfiltered Network. So we appreciate that from everybody. So that being said, we talked about a bunch today. We talked about the CCRBs. We talked about the body-worn cameras and the mandate now to release certain body-worn cameras within 30 days, which really is a nothing burger because it's what she's been doing. The police commissioner has been doing since she's in office. Is it possibly a political, ploy to show that they're on the same page with something? And then we talked about the unfairness of the CCRB and their use of body-worn camera and, vehicle pursuits and the state trooper that was just recently convicted. So I guess let's go to Ask an Executive. This is when you get to ask Ron and Rob questions. We answer questions from the chat where some people don't have access to executives. We have a retired inspector, retired deputy chief from the NYPD here. They'll answer questions on topic or off topic about anything you want to ask. If you want, and you can't ask questions because you're an active member of the service, and we understand that. You don't want retribution or anything like that. You can DM us on X at the Executive Perspective. I'm sorry, at Exec Perspective on X. At Exec Perspective is on X. Or you can email us at theexecutiveperspective@gmail.com. And we will respond back to you, and we will get back to you with an answer. And if we feel the question is appropriate, we'll read out the question on our next episode, of course, keeping your identity completely confidential unless otherwise guided by you. So I know in the very beginning of the show, Rob, we had a question from Delray 53, right? He's always got good questions, but he asked it at the very beginning of the show instead of the end of the show like he normally does. So I don't know if he's still around, Delray. Usually you jump in at the end for the Ask the Executive, but he asked us if we were going to talk about the New York Post article that just dropped about e-bikes no longer getting any criminal court summonses and only getting those oath summonses, those civil summonses. And we weren't going to talk about it. Rob pulled it up real quick and took a look at it. And so you want to comment on that one, Rob?
Yeah, just I think they're looking by the end of this month, if I remember correctly, according to the Post article, that they want to take away the summons activity, the violations for individuals on e-bikes and scooters, and now give them, like an administrative type of summons or a civil summons. I mean, the problem is that if I remember correctly, remember the civil summonses, the ID doesn't have to be verified. Somebody could put down Mickey Mouse and you had to put it down. I mean, I know you could.
Somebody has to vouch for you. You don't have to have an actual identification. Yeah.
So, I mean, I just think that it's a drum down, especially for the reasons that we've seen e-bikes and scooters flying all over the sidewalks, disregard for traffic rules. We've seen them utilize those bikes for robberies, right? There's been patterns of robberies. You and I broke down a video of the 3 guys that were on one of those bikes, one of the scooters, that were probably doing robberies and I think had a gun, right, when they were apprehended. So I just think for some reason the mayor wants to dumb that down a little bit, and I don't really know the reason why. Because if something's bad, it's out of control, the best way to correct it is with summons and violations. So I don't think it's being abused in the fact that it's getting the old delivery guys. You remember, like the poor guy, the Chinese delivery guy on the bike would get a ticket for going the wrong way, and that's not what we're looking to do. We're looking to get the guys that speed around and do everything else. And if you don't think that it's going to get even worse now, then you're naive, because once they know that they're not going to get these, criminal tickets, they're going to be all over these roads, just like those dirt bikes and everything else that tend to take over the streets. So I think it's a stupid idea, and I think it's just another way to lessen the authority of the police officers. It's not a good idea at all. I don't know. What's your thoughts, Ron? What do you think?
Yeah, well, Detective Nolan is asking, because he's an old timer. What's a civil summons? Is it an ECB, which is an Environmental Control Board summons? No, it's not. It's the Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings, oath. It's basically just a civil summons. You don't get a warrant,
No.
and if you become a recidivist, then you're not eligible for an oath anymore. That's the only thing that comes out of that. But it's only a civil penalty, and they say the civil penalties are higher than C summonses, but I don't see it happening.
Oh, I mean monetarily, right? But
Right,
yeah,
monetarily they're higher. Neil has a question. Did you guys hear about the DA New York investigation into Juanita Holmes' shenanigans while the commissioner of probation department, and your thoughts? I haven't heard about it, to be honest. Of a DA's investigation.
Yeah,
I don't.
I actually,
I'm not familiar.
I just looked it up real quick. It's from the Gotham, and it just talks about her accuse her of abusing her power within the police department, which I'm sorry, within the Department of Corrections, but I don't know her personally, so I don't know, and it's just it's probably just, it says that the Department of Probation faces a criminal investigation into a rocky tenure agency. So that's all. I just quickly looked it up, so I'm not really familiar with it either. So did she come back to the NYPD and then retire from the NYPD?
She was one of those.
Let's not get into that.
On loans.
Yeah.
So she was never, she was under that special May executive order or whatever it is. So she's retiring with the NYPD assistant
pension.
No, I'm sorry. She was a 3-star chief, so she's retiring with a chief's pension.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, but I have no knowledge of this. I do know Chief Holmes. I worked with her in Queens North. So I don't know anything about this. Like you said, you just looked it up. I haven't heard about it. Anybody else?
I just
Any other
briefly looked it over. I didn't see anything else. No.
No other questions? Modern Samurai jumping in last minute, my man. Modern Samurai, in case you missed it, we gave you your shout outs at the beginning of the show for last week. We really appreciate it. And tonight, gentlemen, do you think these growing bad mayoral policies are doing a job to eliminate law enforcement effectiveness and its usefulness in keeping New York City safe and orderly? I don't know if that's an intention. He's a Democratic Socialist Republic, Democratic Socialist of America member, DSA, Democratic Socialist, and his beliefs aren't in line with a lot of law enforcement, and a lot of his policies are not going to keep New York City safe, in my view. I think a lot of his policies are detrimental to public safety. I don't think he supports the police. I'm sorry. And I think that his appointments, and you look at who he's appointing, again, judge a man by his character and who he hangs around with. We did that with Eric Adams. We're very critical of Eric Adams because of who he appointed into the positions in his cabinet. And I could say the same thing about Mamdani, and not that it's cronyism, but it's socialism. And he's putting a lot of socialists into positions in the cabinet of New York City who have in their past been very vocal and anti-police. So that's my opinion on that, real quick. And thank you for the super sticker.
Yeah, my answer to that question is simple. Yes. I don't know what his motive is. It could be self-filling. It could be for certain groups so that they could do whatever the hell they want in the city, but 100% yes. Hassan Mo. Haven't seen Hassan in a while.
And Marlon agrees. He wants less people locked up. Absolutely. I said it. I said it last night. I made a comment last night on Pete and Tom's show. Their guest had to back out last minute, so they talked about some heavy cases they were involved in with sex, money, murder, and then Tom talked about some corrupt cops that he had worked with in the past that weren't corrupt when they worked with them, but when they got sent back to patrol no meal, they hooked up with some corrupt people and became corrupt. It was terrible to listen to. It was heartbreaking because he was supposedly a really good cop before that happened. But what I had said is it's not the criminal. It's almost like it's not the criminal justice system anymore. It's the criminals' justice system. It's justice for the criminals and not for the public. And that's the scary thing that I see is going on. See anything else real quick?
Detective Nolan had a question.
What will it take for Tisch to get vocal to the point of being asked to resign? I don't know. I think that she's holding her ground. I think that she has shown support for the police, even though we disagree with her level of discipline in a lot of places. And I'm conflicted and think that she's doing a good job in a lot of ways, but I'm also conflicted that I believe that the police commissioner should have come up through the ranks of law enforcement to understand and have been in the shoes of law enforcement to be able to lead a law enforcement agency. But I think that she has shown in these past few weeks that she's going to stick up for law enforcement with the snow incident, and that she's going to, even though it spoke against the mayor's take on it, she didn't hold the company line, the mayor's company line or the party line with it, and also called out this ISIS-inspired attack for what it was when the mayor refused to. How long she stayed? I don't know. Good question.
I don't think she's gonna go anywhere. I think she's gonna waver a little bit, and there's also her political her political connections with the family, money, and everything else. So I don't think she's gonna go. Is she gonna stand up? I think she'll stand up as much as she can till she gets really pushed. And I just think Mamdani's keeping her in there for a little while. I don't think that this is a long-term position. Maybe she knows that. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she thinks that he'll keep her on. But I think eventually, whether it's an incident that happens or something that she stands up. She stood up, like you said, stood up to pretty tall about the snowball incident. So she stood her ground. But eventually, how long is that going to last? So I agree with what has been said on our podcast and John, Eric, and Marlon's podcast that in the future, 6 months, maybe a little bit less, but I agree.
Yeah. All right. I think we had the one super sticker tonight. So I'll throw that back up for Modern Samurai. We appreciate you, brother. And again, appreciate you from last week. And we showed those super stickers at the beginning of the show. So thank you very much for that. Rob, anything closing before we go into the rest of the shows?
Yeah, just like I always say, be careful out there. Tactics. Talk about hot wash. You can hot wash a car stop, you and your partner. hot wash a domestic case. Talk to each other. Like I've said in the past, and I want to say it again. Look at other people's tactics and look at other things and learn from other people's mistakes, so you don't make the same mistakes. So just watch your six. Be careful out there. Again, like Ron said in the beginning of the show, happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody that celebrated, and just be safe out there.
All right, thanks. All right, so coming up on Friday, let me get rid of the other thing. On Friday, you'll have the round table, but it's just going to be Eric and Marlon, because John is enjoying a week off of vacation. I think, Rob, you signed this 28. It's his vacation pick, so we didn't have a choice. So they'll be back on Friday, 08:05, to continue the conversation about what's going on in local politics and in the NYPD. Also, then they'll be back on Monday. John, Eric, and Marlon will be back on Monday to continue. And then Tuesday at 19:05. Oh, I almost did it, John. At 19:05, 7:05 p.m. The 10-4 Tavern. Another great show last night. Like I said, Pete talked about his involvement with the sex, money, murder case. And then Tommy talked about working in narcotics and SATCOM and, a cop that went rogue that he had known. And sometimes you just never know. And then next week, 7:05 p.m., Pete and Tom will have retired Chief of Detectives of the LAPD, Sean Malinowski. He'll be on. And so that should be another great episode. Again, bringing in leaders, police executives with police perspectives from all around the country. So that'll be another great episode. And then we'll be back next Wednesday at 5:05 p.m. With the next executive perspective. So until then, everybody, thank you very much. Stay safe.